And we are live for week 4. How are we already 1 month into the season? Time is flying. It is going to be a fantastic week. We got a great slate of games ahead of us on our TV screens in just about 4 hours. We're going to be live for at least the next 3 hours. We're about to break down every single game, every single player, everything you need to know for your start sit decisions. We got some player prop analysis. We're going to talk through who I think is the best game of the week. There's one upset I like a lot this week as well. We'll get to that. As we did last week, we're going to start out the live stream just going game by game. Shout out to everybody in the live stream in the AM. This is the true good mornings in the chat in this time of the day. Doesn't really feel like morning that much to me anymore. I've been up for about 4 hours now, looking through this whole week, pumped to get after today. We will, as always, get to the first comment here. First and foremost, got a PPR question here. Christian Watson, Kirk, Tajay Spears. Yeah, down bad right now. I think the answer here is Christian Kirk. We're going to get to, I think, a lot of Christian Watson questions today. I don't love Christian Watson. All right, let me pull up the QB rankings as we start here going game by game before I get to the comments. Guys, we're going to have at least half the live stream to just go rapid fire in the comment section. We're going to get to hundreds of start sits like we do every single Sunday morning. But before we do that, I want to just quickly go game by game, give you some of my high level thoughts. And I want to start out today with the game that I think I'm personally maybe most excited for. Oh, wow. I see someone in the comments saying I beat me in a daily draft. We'll get to that in a second. But let's get to this Bengals game. So let's start actually with the Panthers side of the ball. A rejuvenated Panthers offense by none other than Andy Dalton. I was very skeptical on this live stream last week. Is Andy Dalton really going to be this huge lift for this Panthers offense? I was highly skeptical of that last week, and it turned out to be the case, at least in a one-game sample so far. Andy Dalton did make this a real offense, a real NFL offense. He had 319 passing yards and 3 pass TDs. Andy Dalton was the first player this NFL season to throw for over 300 yards and have 3 touchdowns. Unreal stuff from Andy Dalton. He was extremely efficient in this game. Looks great. Looked comfortable back there. The Panthers offensive line also is underratedly actually pretty good. That showed up, I think, in this game too. This was the easiest matchup the Panthers have had of the season, but this is not a bad matchup for the Panthers offense this week either. We just saw the Commanders pick apart this Bengals defense on primetime Monday Night Football, half primetime, as Amon-Ra St. Brown would call it, because they're putting 2 Monday Night Football games on our TV screens these days. That's been a headache. But Andy Dalton, revenge game. This is a long time revenge game for the Red Rocket here. I don't think he's a must start or anything for fantasy. Andy Dalton, I think he's an interesting start. Like, I would start Andy Dalton over Deshaun Watson. I would start Andy Dalton over Will Levis, over Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Stafford. I'd even start him over Derek Carr this week. So a decent amount of guys I'm starting him over. I don't think I'd start him over Anthony Richardson, though I do think that that's up for debate. I expect this to keep going here for Andy Dalton. The other players in this offense, Chuba Hubbard's a must start this week. There's absolutely no way you want to be benching Chuba Hubbard. He had one of the best workloads in the league last week, guys. He had 5 catches, 55 yards, scored on one of those. He also saw 21 carries for a 68% rush share. He had a total of 26 touches in this game last week. The offense flows through the running backs in this Dave Canales offense. He's going to get targets. He's going to get carries. Again, a pretty decent matchup here against the Bengals. Chuba Hubbard's a strong high floor PPR play for sure. We got him ranked running back 13 in the Walter Picks app right now. If you're in the comments, by the way, let me know which position rankings you want to see next. I got all the positional rankings ready to go for the TikTok and YouTube live. But as always, guys, we're live on TikTok and YouTube. The YouTube live is the better viewing experience. On the YouTube live, you get all the same rankings, but I can share my screen to what we're talking about. Like, we're looking at all the Panthers players on the screen right now. Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, both pretty good sleepers. I would actually say Jonathan Mingo is an even bigger sleeper than Legette, because Legette was the first round pick in the NFL draft. I think like the general sharp people are aware of Xavier Legette. Nobody's really thinking about Jonathan Mingo. Meanwhile, they've had a very comparable role this season. I think one of these guys will probably benefit from this Andy Dalton change, and Adam Thielen being out. Guys, Adam Thielen's out. He's out for at least the next month. This is massive for Deontay Johnson, I think, first and foremost, but also one of these guys is probably going to benefit from this. And actually, Bingo has more targets per game than Legette. Same amount of receptions. Very similar players here, in my opinion. Legette definitely has a higher ceiling just because he's a rookie, a little bit more of an unknown. But nonetheless, I think both those guys are interesting sleepers. Deontay Johnson's got to be started. He picked up a groin injury this week. but it didn't sound so serious. Sounded like it had a lot to do with he just didn't want to play on whatever surface they were playing on in practice, which doesn't make a ton of sense to me. But he had 14 targets last week. Deontay Johnson needs to be starting in PPR leagues. He's arguably a top 12 wide receiver in PPR with Adam Thielen out, assuming he's fully healthy. So you're definitely starting Deontay Johnson. I'll pull up the wide receiver ranks here. That's tight end. Got the wide receiver. I'll pull up the wide receiver rankings here on the YouTube live as well. All right, on the other side of this ball, the Bengals, the Cincinnati Bengals. And again, once again, this is week 4 now. WTF going on with the Cincinnati Bengals. Definitely something, storyline I'm following closely again this week. That the 0-3 Cincinnati Bengals just got destroyed by the Commanders, at least defensively. The offense at least looked good, but every offense has looked good against the Washington Commanders this season. Burrow's a fine start this week. It's not like the Panthers defense is very scary. This is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. These are two of the worst defenses in the NFL right now, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Carolina Panthers. Part of the reason this game should be pretty exciting. Jamar Chase is locked and loaded as a top 6 wide receiver play. He could easily finish as the wide receiver 1 overall this week. Joe Burrow is, I think, a solid start this week, coming off a good game against the Commanders. Again, that's kind of expected, but he did have 25 points, 300 passing yards, 3 TDs, Andy Dalton type stat line, should I say, for Joe Burrow last week. Zach Moss, I think, is a fine start against the Panthers this week. He definitely is the preferred running back here on this team. He's played over 75% of snaps in back-to-back games. That's Zach Moss, high floor. He had 6 targets last week, too. He's just the guy that they trust way more than Chase Brown in this offense. Could see Chase Brown having a bigger game than he's had, but he's not really on the fantasy start-sit radar. T. Higgins, I think, is one of the harder start-sits of the week. I personally am in on T. Higgins. I'm not out on T. Higgins, mostly just because the participation was pretty strong in his first game back. 90% snap percentage. He ran around 95% of the dropbacks for the Bengals. Like I'm just going to buy this participation. It didn't turn into great production or volume or efficiency last week. He was close to a touchdown last week, but the fact that he's out there every single play, not a scary defense, I'm willing to throw T. Higgins out there in many situations. We got him ranked wide receiver 20 right now on the week. Some guys that I would play T. Higgins over. I'd play T. Higgins over Jacoby Myers, over Khalil Shakir, over Deebo Samuel, over Christian Kirk, over Terry McLaurin. These are some of the guys I'd play T. Higgins over this week. I do think there's a really high ceiling still for T. Higgins that we obviously haven't seen yet this season. I don't want to start any of the Bengals tight ends. By the way, I'll just end the tight end, the Bengals commentary there. All right, next game. Let's go to the Jaguars-Texans game. Excited for this one too. I do think that Nico Collins is a absolute smash play this week, guys. If you're watching live on TikTok, smash the follow button. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button. Let's get over 100 likes in this live. We're going game by game right now. Then we're going to get 100 of start-sit comments right after that. We're on the second game right now. We just talked about the Bengals-Panthers. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, I'm also live on YouTube. Better viewing experience on YouTube. Link is right in the TikTok bio. You get a better viewing experience. I can share my screen. You get the same rankings, but I can share my screen and pull comments up on screen. So come to the YouTube live, watching live on TikTok. All right, so the Texans. The pass game for the Texans, guys, is going to smash today. Little teaser for the DraftKings lineup. I got all 3 of these top 3 guys here for the Texans in my DraftKings lineup today. We got 2 top 10 receivers this week on the Houston Texans. Guys, Tank Dell is out this week. This is massive. A massive, massive deal for both Nico and Diggs. Heading into this season, right, this was arguably the best starting 3 receivers in the NFL. I thought it was between them and the Chicago Bears, but they've been dealing with tons of injuries too. I still think the Bears are still sort of in that debate at full health. But the Texans, I think, had the best 3 receivers in the NFL. Tank Dell is out this week, though. That is going to consolidate targets to Nico Collins and Steph Diggs in what is a pretty good matchup here for both these guys as well. They get a matchup against the Jaguars. Jaguars have been a horrible team to start the year. Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle both went over 16 points. We saw Khalil Shakir and Josh Allen just pass all over them last week. Both these guys, I think, are locked in to at least 6 catches. We got them both projected right around a little over six receptions. I think there's a really high floor and an extremely high ceiling, especially if the Jaguars can keep pace in this game. We'll see if that ends up being the case. The only injury question mark really right now heading into the games, knock on wood, assuming we don't have any Evan Ingram situations. What's the deal, by the way, guys? What are all these soft tissue injuries happening in practice and in warmups? I mean, absolutely insane. We had Chris Olave tweak a hamstring. Devontae Adams tweak a hamstring in Friday's practice. We got Evan Ingram tweaking his hamstring before the game. I mean, just brutal stuff this season with the hamstrings. It does sound like Chris Olave is going to play, but Joe Mixon, he's on the wrong side of questionable right now. He is not ruled out. I would put it at 65% chance he doesn't play. That's how we're projecting in the Walter Picks app right now, which makes Cam Akers, in the starting conversation. Let me switch over to the running back rankings here on both live streams as I talk through this. We'll pull up the running back ranks here. Cam Akers is startable. He scored a touchdown last week, still didn't even get to 10 points. This is a better matchup for him, though, this week. The Vikings defensive line, guys, is good. I am a little bit scared for Jordan Love this week against the Vikings. We'll get to that matchup here in a second. But this defense is not nearly as scary as the Vikings defense. Jaguars got crushed by H.N. in week 1. James Cook and Ty Johnson both crushed them last week. I mean, this defense got steamrolled last week. I don't think the Texans rushing attack will steamroll them quite as bad. Cam Akers is like a back-end RB2, high-end RB3, I think. If Mixon is out. If Mixon is in, you cannot start Cam Akers. And I'm honestly a little scared to start Mixon too if Mixon plays. But the main takeaway for me for this Texans offense heading into this game, you got to trust CJ Stroud to bounce back. We haven't seen a big CJ Stroud game yet, but this is also the best matchup of a season. I love spots like this where I think Stroud right now in general is being a little underrated. He hasn't had a game over 20 points yet. He's been a little underwhelming. The offense in general hasn't really been cooking like it was last season, but they played the Bears and the Vikings last 2 games. These are 2 top 10 defenses so far this season. And he did okay against the Colts there in week 1, but this Jaguars defense, easily the best defense they played. I think they're going to throw a ton in this game again, especially if the Jaguars can keep pace. So I like him. I don't think Schultz, by the way, Schultz is top 10 tight end option this week. Schultz is not the worst option with Tank Dell out. Tank Dell being out, again, massive for this team. And then on the Jaguar side of the ball, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, there's comments after last game for Trevor Lawrence. Is Mac Jones going to play? I mean, there's no chance, guys, that they take out Trevor Lawrence for Mac Jones. That would be an all-time down bad move for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I do think we kind of know what Mac Jones is at this point. I'd be pretty surprised to see that, but it's been abysmal stuff for Trevor Lawrence, under 14 points every single game. Again, though, this is another spot similar to CJ Stroud. Look at the defenses that Trevor Lawrence has played. The Dolphins ranked top 5 against quarterbacks this season. The Browns ranked 12th best against quarterbacks. The Bills also top 10. So he's played 3 top 12 defenses versus quarterbacks. Now he gets a Texans defense that has not been that great at stopping quarterbacks. We saw A-Rich have his best game of the season against them. Sam Darnold ripped them up last week. Caleb Williams struggled a bit, but I do think this is probably going to be Trevor Lawrence's best game of the season as well. Makes me pretty excited, honestly, to start Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk bounced back. Finally happened last week. Scored 16 fantasy points. The target share, I think, was up. 23% target share. He had 10 total targets last week. Evan Ingram out again this week. Gabe Davis was questionable this one. Does sound like he's going to play, but both Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, I do think at least one of these guys is going to have a big game. ETN definitely still needs to be started. Tank Bigsby is still there, sort of lurking in the background. They said they want to get him more carries. Then he hurt his shoulder on a punt return, and then he sort of barely got any work last week. Definitely still something I'm monitoring, but this type of rush share, over 60% back-to-back games. He had, I think, some targets in the last one too. 6 targets. He's had 10 targets over his last 2 games. ETN's a must start in most spots for sure. Brenton Strange, he's a dart throw tight end. I don't really love him, honestly, this week. He does have over 9 points in back-to-back games, but there's just no real ceiling. Absolutely no real ceiling here for Brenton Strange. I'd much prefer Elijah Higgins over Brenton Strange. Let me pull up the tight end ranks here as we keep going game by game at the start of this live. Again, we are going to get to the comments here coming up momentarily. All right, let's get to the next game here. Let's talk about this Vikings-Packers game, a revenge game of all sorts here. So starting off with the Vikings, Aaron Jones, big-time revenge game. Definitely like him a lot this week. The usage has been really strong. I do think that the Packers have been a good matchup for running backs. Other than last week, the running backs did kind of struggle a little bit against the Packers, but the whole Titans offense struggled. They still did. Spears and Pollard still did combine over 15 points. JT had 103 rushing yards against them in week 2, and then Saquon absolutely annihilated them in week 1 with 33 points. I think he had 3 touchdowns in that game. Aaron Jones coming off his best game of the season, 26 fantasy points last week. He's been a top 10 running back now in 2 out of 3 games. Definitely a strong start here. He played over 60% of the snaps. He's seeing his biggest workload really of his career. We have never really seen Aaron Jones in a role like this. Ty Chandler is still mixing in, but over 20% target share back-to-back weeks here for Aaron Jones. He got 12 targets in his last 2 games. He's been efficient on those targets too. His floor has been pretty strong this season too. This is arguably, on paper, the best matchup he's had of the season. Plus, you got the revenge game component. Yeah, sign me up for Aaron Jones this week for sure. He's a top 20 running back option. Justin Jefferson, he ranks as wide receiver 1. No questions really needed there. Sam Darnold ranks as top 12 quarterback, right at number 12. Definitely an interesting spot for him. I don't love him, don't hate him this week. That's right what you deserve, at QB 12. I actually prefer Justin Fields, Geno Smith, both over Sam Darnold this week. We'll get to that in a second. Jordan Addison is back. Jalen Naylor is off the fantasy radar. He has scored a touchdown in every single game, Jalen Naylor, but he's wide receiver 3 in this offense. Definitely don't want to be starting him in fantasy. And Addison, I'm a little skittish to start Addison too. I mean, we haven't seen anything really from him this season. I think he's just a boom bust flex play at best, and not really a guy I want to force into my lineup this week. So yeah, it's really Aaron Donald, Justin Jefferson here on this team, and then Johnny Munt. Don't start Munt. Start Elijah Higgins over Munt if you're considering Munt. All right, on the Packers side of the ball, which is the offense I'm more excited to talk through right now, because Malik Willis supposedly is going to play like a little bit. How much is he going to play? Nobody really knows. I think we're projecting him in the Walter Picks app to play 5% of snaps. It could easily be 10%. It could easily be 1%. I don't know exactly how much Malik Willis is going to play, and that definitely adds a lot of variance to try to analyze this Packers offense, especially for Jordan Love in the pass catchers. Malik Willis coming off the best game of his career in his revenge game last week. I think 5% is a reasonable projection for Willis. Apparently, he's going to get some snaps in. But Jordan Love, it does make him a little bit scary of a start in his first game back. Like, I prefer to bench Jordan Love in this game, especially because the Vikings defense, guys, I think maybe the most underrated defense in the NFL. No quarterback has done well against them. We saw Daniel Jones get smoked in week 1. Brock Purdy only had 15 points. CJ Stroud got crushed last week. This defensive line is arguably the best defensive line in all of football right now, which is kind of scary in your first game back here for Jordan Love. So I'm a little bit nervous there for Love. I don't think you want to force Jordan Love into the starting lineup this week. Let me pull up the high-level takeaways here for you guys on the TikTok live. We're going game by game right now. Jayden Reed must start. Got to start Jayden Reed. Jordan Love is back. Jayden Reed's the best receiver on this team. Super high ceiling. I think the floor is not that bad either. We saw the ceiling in week 1, 33 points. He hasn't had a game with more than 4 catches yet, but he's still gone over 10 points in 2 of them. This is a good matchup for the pass catchers. The Vikings are in a lot of ways the pass funnel defense, but they're just very good at getting pressure on the quarterback. Their secondary is definitely the weakness of the team. I do think at least one of these receivers will have a good game. We have Dobbs like well ahead of Christian Watson right now. Christian Watson, his role has kind of been diminished over the last few weeks. It's hard to read too much into that because Malik Willis was playing. Like, maybe they just didn't like Christian Watson's skill set as much with Malik Willis as they will with Jordan Love. Definitely could see that being the case. But nonetheless, he's a super risky start this week, guys. I had Christian Watson on my do not draft list this season. That's looking pretty good through 3 games. Again, a little bit of luck there with the Malik Willis stuff, but he only had 10.3 points in week 1 when he scored a touchdown. Only 10 points when you score a touchdown is not something super exciting for Christian Watson. Eagles defense or Vikings defense? Yeah, I'd probably go with the Vikings defense, honestly, over the Eagles defense. Definitely a close one there, though. We'll get to the defenses here in a second. Also, I'll have the defense ranks up on the YouTube live. We're watching live on TikTok, guys. Come to the YouTube live. But yeah, Christian Watson really not someone I want to be starting, even with Jordan Love back. Jayden Reed's the only receiver I really want to start. Romeo Doubs is startable. Christian Watson is startable. He just still has somewhat of a ceiling. I think the floor is really low. And how high is the ceiling really? We really haven't seen it this season. Tucker Kraft is the tight end 1 here on this team, but Musgrave and Kraft both healthy for this game. Not startable, really. I would prefer Elijah Higgins over both those guys this week. Josh Jacobs is also a must start. We haven't seen Josh Jacobs' best game yet because he hasn't scored a touchdown. How has Josh Jacobs not scored a touchdown? Dude's got over 225 total yards, no TDs. I mean, that's going to change sooner rather than later. Kind of a tough matchup for him here. But I think Josh Jacobs is pretty underrated in fantasy right now because the volume's been good. The total yards and efficiency has actually been pretty good. The issue has been no touchdowns. And that's going to change, I think, sooner rather than later for Josh Jacobs. All right, on to this Saints-Falcons game. There was a bunch of injuries to monitor heading into this game. Alvin Kamara was banged up with, I think it was a ribs. Let me read this latest stuff of Alvin Kamara. Hip and rib injury, expected to play. I think, you got to blame, I think, the Saints a little bit for their game plan last week. They gave Alvin Kamara 26 carries, and so many of these carries were right up the middle against the clear strength of the Philadelphia Eagles defense. And what does that lead to? A pretty subpar efficient day. He had 3.3 yards per carry, Kamara, last week, by far his worst efficiency of the season. He also gets dinged up with hip and rib injuries. He's going to play in this game, but no chance he gets to 26 carries again, especially with the injuries he's dealing with. This is also not a great matchup for him. Nonetheless, he projects a top 3 running back because the usage has been absolutely incredible. And what he gets taken away in carries, he's probably going to gain in targets. And then Chris Olave, he picked up a hamstring injury in practice on Friday. You never like to see these late week hamstring injuries. Doesn't sound like it's super serious. Sounds like he's going to play today. He's technically a game time decision, but it seems like he's trending towards playing. Pull up the wide receiver ranks here again on the YouTube live. Let's go to the wide receiver ranks on the TikTok live too. Why bench Juwan Jennings? Yeah, we're going to get to that game here coming up in a second. I'll go to the QB ranks again, actually, on the TikTok live. All right, let's go to Chris Olave at the start, though, guys. Chris Olave is a start in this game if he plays, and it does seem like he's going to play. We moved him down a little bit in the rankings based on the hamstring injury, but we've seen at least one receiver do pretty well against this team. And Rice cooked this Falcon secondary last week. That's kind of is the role that Olave is in. Olave and Rice, I think, in a relatively comparable situation. Same thing with Devontae Smith and Chris Olave. Honestly, similar thing with Pickens and Olave. So I like the floor a little bit for Olave. The only scary thing with Olave is the hamstring stuff, which is definitely a bit scary. All right, let's get to the rest of this offense. Shaheed is definitely startable. He had 0 points last week. He was a buy low for me heading into this week, though, because the usage was still there. The air yard share was still there. It was actually his best air yard day of the season. He has a great role in this offense, and I do like him to have a good ceiling every single week. He ranks as wide receiver 32 this week. Olave or London? Yeah, so let's get to the other side of this ball. That's a good question here in the TikTok live. It's London over Olave, I think, pretty easily, especially when you consider the hamstring stuff for Olave. A lot of these guys that are playing through the injuries this week have a decent amount of risk, guys, like a decent amount of risk. Olave can tweak the hamstring, or they could just play him a little bit less to be cautious with it. You know, that definitely bodes well for London over Olave too. But even in a vacuum, I think we would have had London projected over Olave without the hamstring injury. London's starting to cook a little bit, guys. Over 17 points in back-to-back games. He's not coming off the field. He had a 33% target share last week. Not the greatest matchup against the Saints, but he's done okay in tough matchups. Like he did well against the Chiefs. We saw CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Tolbert all go over 14 points against this Saints defense. So yeah, I think Drake London over Olave makes a lot of sense. I think London over a lot of people makes a lot of sense this week. We have him ranked as wide receiver 11. I don't think we've seen even close to the best game for Chris Olave yet. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button, then come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the TikTok bio. It's a better viewing experience. I can share my screen on the YouTube live, and I can pull up comments on the YouTube live. We did already talk about Deontay Johnson, seeing some comments about him. He's a must start. He's a must start in PPR leagues. Another guy battling through an injury, so he has some risk there too. But guys, he had 14 targets last week. You got to be starting Deontay Johnson. There's no Adam Thielen for the next month. Deontay Johnson is locked and loaded as one of the highest floor PPR wide receivers in all of fantasy. All right. We talked through the Saints and the Falcons game. I do think that I think this game had a pretty close spread. Let me actually pull up the spreads here. I was pretty surprised, honestly. So the Bengals are 5-point favorites in Carolina. I honestly like the Panthers, with the points there. I think the Panthers have a decent chance to beat the Bengals. The Packers are only 2.5-point favorites at home. That one's going to be close, man. I think I lean towards the points there too with the Vikings. The Texans are 5.5-point favorites at home versus the Jaguars. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then the Saints-Falcons game, Falcons are 3-point favorites at home in this one. I think I lean towards the Falcons in this one too, with all the injuries for the Saints. The Saints also have a banged up offensive line heading into this game, which also is not going to bode great for the rushing attack. All right, let's get to the next game here. Let's talk about the Broncos and Jets game here. One of the uglier games for sure. I'm going to be telling a lot of people to bench a lot of players in this game today on this live stream. We're gonna get 100 start sits, guys, on this live stream. Let's go to the tight end ranks here, because I know a lot of people are struggling with tight ends. I'll switch to tight end ranks here too on the YouTube live. No tight ends to start here for the Broncos, but really all these guys need to be benched. There's no real ceiling for Courtland Sutton in this game against the Jets. He had his best game of the season last week, only 14 points. I mean, there's just no ceiling here. The target shares have been good. It just doesn't really matter on this team in this offense. Javonte Williams, not really startable. He's losing a slip on his role. Tyler Batty, wouldn't be crazy to see him all of a sudden out-snap Javonte. Javonte's barely over 50% of the snaps. He only had 5 carries last week for 18% of the rushing attempts, only 4 targets. He does have 9 targets in the last 2 games, kind of saving him in fantasy. But yeah, really none of these Broncos players you want anywhere near your starting lineup. But then we got the New York Jets on the other side of this game. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson definitely still need to be started. Not a good spot for Garrett Wilson going up against Pat Surtain. He's locked down basically every single top receiver that he's played against. Has not been great. You look at the matchup here for Garrett Wilson, and you get a little scared. DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett all went under 14 points. We saw George Pickens only have 5 points against the Jets. Then Chris Godwin had 17 points last week, but Evans only had 3 points. So really scary matchup for Garrett Wilson. Still has to be started, though, in fantasy. And that's it. It's Breece Hall. It's Garrett Wilson. Do not start any of these other players in this game. I was pretty surprised. Definitely a storyline I'm watching in this one. The spread on this game was kind of crazy. The Jets are 8-point favorites over the Broncos. Should they really be 8-point favorites? I get they're at home. I get that the Broncos have been struggling a bit. They are coming off their best game, though. I don't know. Is this offense really good enough to be an 8-point favorite? I'm not super convinced about that. I think part of this has to do with a little bit overrating the Jets, a little bit underrating the Broncos. I think this is my upset pick of the week, by the way. The Broncos absolutely could beat the Jets. Absolutely, the Denver Broncos could beat the New York Jets. It's going to be an ugly, slow game, low-scoring game. I think there's a lot of variance in this game. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Broncos beat the Jets personally. I was pretty surprised when I saw that they were projecting this as an 8-point spread in this one. See, it's at 7.5 right now. This game also is the lowest over-under of the week. All right, on to a little bit more of an exciting game here. The Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Saquon's RB1 this week. There's no A.J. Brown. There's no Devontae Smith. This is a massively different offense without both of those guys. This was already an offense that had one of the most consolidated target shares in the NFL. It was Devontae Smith. It was A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon. Those guys combined for over 80% of the total targets. You rarely see this in NFL offenses. With both these guys out, Saquon's RB1, Goddard's tight end 1. Goddard is tight end 1 this week, guys. You need to be starting Dallas Goedert. It's between him and Brock Bowers, who we're going to get to here in a second, but Dallas Goedert over everybody this week. We just saw it last week when A.J. Brown was out, but now Devontae Smith is also out. Dallas Goedert is the only guy, really, you can say is pretty much locked into 10 PPR points at the tight end position, and maybe you could say that about Brock Bowers too, because he had a 30% target share last week. He had 11 targets. He's almost guaranteed over 20% target share with Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown out. He's had at least 6.5 points in every single game, which is actually saying something at the tight end position. But he was tight end 1 last week. He's tight end 1 this week too. And after the bye, hopefully after week 5, we see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith come back. But Saquon also is just a smash player with these guys out. Like the target share is going to be there for Saquon. The carries are obviously going to be there. He's got 9 targets his last 2 games. He's got almost 50 carries. Almost 40 carries in his last 2 games, almost 50 total touches in the last 2 games for Saquon. We weren't underrating, the efficiency boost for Saquon heading into the season. He's going from a bottom 5 Giants offensive line to a top 5 Eagles offensive line. That showed up clearly here in the first 3 weeks. Not the best matchup for Saquon, but the volume's going to be there. So you got to be starting him, for sure everywhere. Why is Kelsey above Kittle? Yeah, so I'm scared to start Kittle for sure this week. We'll get to that Pats 49ers game here in a second. But before we do that, let's get to the Buccaneers side of the ball. I like both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans a lot this week. We have them both projected as top 10 wide receivers. Mike Evans is being definitely pretty underrated in fantasy football right now. He's coming off 2 bad games, both games under 7.5 PPR points against the Lions, which was a good matchup, but then against the Broncos, which was a bad matchup. This is a very good matchup for receivers here against the Eagles. Another season where the Eagles are a pass funnel defense. Their defensive line is top 5 in the NFL. Their secondary is bottom 10 in the NFL. That really does create a heavy environment against them. We saw Jayden Reed pop off, Chris Olave, Drake London, Darnell Mooney, all had good games, all over 15 PPR points. Evans or Godwin, maybe both, are going over 15 PPR points. Today, you got to feel really good about both of them. And I think Evans has a really high ceiling, should be started in basically every single situation. This backfield is one to watch extremely closely this week. Both these guys ended up being questionable for this game, which was not expected heading into the week. Bucky Irving, he picked up a soft tissue injury. I think it was a hamstring injury, expected to play. Yeah, hamstring issue. He practiced on Friday. He's going to be playing in this game, Bucky Irving, but he's coming in with a hamstring issue too, which is never great because those things can cause you to get a little less work. So they ease you back in, or they have a chance to get re-aggravated. So that's, already a concern there for Bucky. We have these guys back-to-back though in the rankings. Back-to-back Bucky Irving and Rachaad White in the running back rankings this week. It's really unclear who's even going to get the most snaps in this backfield. But Rachaad White, he clearly has lost a grip on the early down work with the carries. He's been incredibly inefficient since entering the league. As a running back, he's been even worse this season than last season, guys. Last season, I think he was right around 3 yards per carry. This season he's at 2.1 yards per carry. He has not gone over 3 yards per carry in a single game this season. And it's not like these matchups have been, terrible. And Bucky Irving, meanwhile, has been much more efficient on the ground. I do think Bucky Irving out carries and out produces Rachaad White on the ground. But the thing that's pretty murky for fantasy is Rachaad White's still a great receiving back. I think people are a little bit overreacting to this news about Bucky Irving being the better early down back and not, keeping in mind that Rachaad White's one of the best receiving backs in the NFL. He's been one of the best receiving backs in the NFL since he entered the league. He had 6 targets last week. He had 6 targets in week 1. Both those games was over an 18% target share. There's not that many running backs that can get over an 18% target share, especially in this game against the Eagles where they're underdogs at home. That is actually a pretty good environment for Rachaad White. So definitely interesting here for fantasy. I still would be playing Rachaad White over Bucky Irving, but they're really close, and I don't really want to start either of them. I do want to see how the situation plays out a little bit before getting them into my starting lineup. Cade Otton's not the worst guy at tight end if you really need to throw someone out there. He's typically out there just running wind sprints. Last week, though, he did get 7 catches. It did finish as a top 10 tight end, so you could do worse at the tight end position for sure than Cade Otton. Also notable in this game, Jalen McMillan is out in this game. He's out with an injury. That is good for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, especially Mike Evans, who I think plays a little bit more of that Jalen McMillan role with some of those deeper routes, but also Trey Palmer is going to be playing in this game as the wide receiver 3, probably almost every single snap. Sterling Shepard also got called up for the Bucs. He has a long-time relationship with Baker Mayfield. Interested to see him potentially get some more run. All right, on to the Steelers and Colts game, guys. Before I dive into the Steelers and Colts, which I do think there's some must-start guys on the Steelers team, smash the like button if you're watching live on YouTube. Hit the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. We're going to go through the positional rankings here in a second. We're going to get to hundreds of start sit comments, so don't go anywhere. We're going to get to the comments. I see the comments. We're going to get to the comments. But before we do, I'm trying something new out like I did last week where I'm just going to go through every single game, get my thoughts out for every single game, all the relevant players first. Then we go rapid fire, basically for the rest of the live, just going through the start sits, talking through everything in a little less of a structured format. All right, so going to the Steelers game here. So the Steelers travel to Indianapolis. They are 2.5-point favorites in this game. Justin Fields is a top 10 quarterback this week, guys. Justin Fields has a high floor. And we saw what I think the bottom of that floor is in week 1 and week 2. I really actually think his floor moving forward is arguably higher than what we saw in week 1 and week 2, though, because we have not seen the rushing efficiency yet for Justin Fields. He was at 4.1 yards per carry, 3.4 yards per carry, and only 1 yard per carry last week for Fields, where if you go back to last season and you look at his yards per carry numbers, guys, he was at 5.3. He was over 5 yards per carry in almost every single game. I do think we're going to see more efficiency on the ground from Fields moving forward. And as soon as this week, last week he had 19 points. He looked like he's the best thrower he's been this season, which makes sense that he's going to grow into the throwing efficiency as he starts to get a better feel for the offense and get some reps with the first team under his belt in a real game. The floor, guys, comes from the rushing. Rushing gives you a great floor in fantasy. The ceiling comes from the passing and rushing combo. And if he's going to be able to throw effectively, and I think he could improve his rushing efficiency, all of a sudden there's actually kind of an exciting ceiling there for Fields too. He gets a couple rushing touchdowns, passing touchdown. He's a QB5 on the week. Like that, he is absolutely capable of that. And this is arguably the best matchup he's had of the season. The Colts defense has been okay, not great. We've seen Caleb Williams had his best fantasy game of the season last week, 19 points, Stroud at 18 points, even Malik Willis at 13. I think that's the floor here for Fields. So yeah, kind of a high floor. I think sneaky ceiling play here. Justin Fields at quarterback. There's no Jaylen Warren this week, which is massive for Najee Harris. Najee Harris is one of the highest floor running backs in all of fantasy football this week. He's not a super sexy ceiling. You're going to find sexier ceilings out there than Najee Harris, which is kind of always the case for him. But he's actually had a decent floor with Jaylen Warren in the lineup. He's had over 8 points in all 3 games. Last week was his best fantasy game of the season with 13.6. He had 5 catches in that game where Jaylen Warren was taken out. It's going to be a Najee Harris, Cordero Patterson backfield today. Guys, this is also part of the reason I like Justin Fields a little bit more, because some of that rush work that Jaylen Warren was going to get, it's all going to flow through to Najee, to Fields, and to Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson, absolutely a sleeper in deeper leagues this week. He is going to be involved in both the pass and run game more than usual. But Najee Harris is in for a massive workload, guys. He's had at least 17 carries in all 3 games. Last week, he had a season-high 5 targets. There's definitely a good chance we see 20-plus touches for Najee Harris this week, which gives him a great floor in a pretty great matchup, too, here for Najee. The Colts got crushed by Mixon in week 1. Roshan Johnson and DeAndre Swift combined over 15 points against them. Josh Jacobs didn't end up with a great fantasy day, but he crushed them in week 2 with 151 rushing yards. Yeah, I like Najee in this game a lot. I think we see Najee's first touchdown, I think, of the season. Yeah, no rushing TDs for Najee. It's kind of a similar spot, honestly. Najee Harris is like a slightly worse version than Josh Jacobs. The role is there for Najee. Almost 20 touches a game. He's getting targets. He's going to be the goal line back. He just hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Efficiency, hasn't been as great for Najee, which is why I say he's a worse version of Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a more efficient version of Najee Harris, but at least the volume is there. The lack of touchdowns is there, making them both a little bit underrated. But yeah, Najee needs to be started in basically every single start sit question I'm going to see start Najee Harris. He's running back 15 this week. The only running backs I'm starting over Najee Harris. Let me pull up the running back rankings here again on the YouTube live. I start James Cook over him. I start Chuba Hubbard, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor over him. These are the guys I'm starting over Najee Harris. Yeah, so someone's in TikTok Live. We did already talk about the Packers game, but someone's saying, why sit Jordan Love? Sit Jordan Love because this is a scary matchup in his first game back. The Vikings defense, one of the most underrated defenses in the NFL, arguably the best defensive line in the NFL. Their secondary is definitely the weakness of the team, but ultimately Willis is going to mix in for the Packers. So, there's just kind of a scary floor, I think, for Jordan Love here. I would just start Fields over him straight up this week. Play it safe a little bit there. I think similar ceilings, honestly, and much better floor here for Justin Fields. All right, and then also George Pickens. He's a boom bust wide receiver 3. That's what he is in fantasy. We really haven't seen the boom yet because he also hasn't scored a touchdown yet this season. No TDs. This is his best or second best matchup of the season for Pickens. He's really the only receiver you could possibly think about starting. I don't hate it. DJ Moore, Roma Odunze did well last week. The Packers receivers are kind of deflating this secondary against receivers too, because this was a Malik Willis game. And so we really both games with real quarterbacks, Nico Collins, Diggs, both went over 15 points. DJ Moore, Odunze, both went over 15 points. I think Pickens is going to go over 15 points this week, probably his best game of the season. Not a bad start. We got him ranked as wide receiver 30. I think he's also getting a little bit underrated right now because he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. I don't want to start anyone else on this team other than the Steelers defense is definitely in play here against the Colts. Let's go to the Colts here. The Steelers defense ranks top 5 for us this week for fantasy. The Steelers defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL, pretty clearly. That's not great news for Anthony Richardson, who's been struggling big time and definitely a storyline I'm watching closely this week. This is honestly, it's not a good matchup for A-Rich, but it is a good opportunity for Anthony Richardson to kind of put all the concerns aside, right? If he can play well against a good Steelers defense, I think that's going to be really noteworthy. One thing I'm following closely this week for sure is A-Rich, are the struggles going to continue against the Steelers? Because everyone thinks they're going to. And if they don't, I think I'm going to be much more aggressively targeting Anthony Richardson, feel much better about him in fantasy football. But yeah, he's been horrible the last 2 weeks. Under 13 points, back-to-back games, only 7 points against the Bears, the best defense he's played this season. The completion percentage has been under 50% or below in every single game. This was the concerns of why I wasn't drafting Anthony Richardson before the season. We've never seen Anthony Richardson be a consistently accurate passer. And that is a big problem in today's NFL. Makes me kind of scared to start Michael Pittman in this game. I prefer to start George Pickens over Michael Pittman, pretty easily, especially considering Josh Downs came in last week and I think had an even higher target share. Yeah, he did than Michael Pittman. Josh Downs might actually be the number 1 wide receiver in this offense, and there's accuracy concerns. Not great here for Pittman. He's definitely a dart throw upside guy with a really low floor. And Josh Downs is also a guy that I don't feel great starting, but he had a 28% target. He actually matched the target total for Pittman. So they both had 5 targets last week. I don't know why I thought it was 6 for Downs last week, but he only caught 3 of those for 22 yards. Pittman's actually in the better role for fantasy. He's getting deeper targets. Downs might lead this team in targets, though, in a little bit more of that short intermediate role. JT still, top 12 running back play. Still got to start him for sure. But you're benching Anthony Richardson this week, guys, for tons and tons and tons of players. You can't start Anthony Richardson against the Steelers. I'm definitely intrigued, though, to see a bounce back performance against a good defense for A-Rich, but it's probably going to be more of the same and more of the struggle bus for Anthony Richardson. All right, let's move on to the Rams-Bears game. This is a little bit of an ugly one, but I do think Caleb Williams has something to build off of from last week. 19 points, best game of the season. Now he gets a bad Rams defense. They rank 3rd worst against quarterbacks this season. The Bears have been throwing a ton. A 28-point game from Kyler against the Rams, 25-point game last week for Purdy against the Rams. Goff kind of struggled a bit against the Rams, but Caleb Williams absolutely in startable territory. I'd start him over Anthony Richardson. For example, DJ Moore is a good option. The receivers, though, in this game, very, very weird environment for the wide receivers. They have Keenan Allen's prop line set in the 20s. In the 20s is where his prop line's are set, which has me very concerned for him in this game, even if he plays. So he's officially questionable with a heel injury, Keenan Allen, that's held him out. It does sound likely Keenan Allen's going to play, though, but his prop line is being set in the 20s. I mean, we got him projected for 34, 3 catches, 34 yards. It's just really tough to know if Keenan Allen's going to be at 100% or not, and the prop lines are projecting Keenan Allen not to be at 100%. I do not want to start Keenan Allen at all. I would play Odunze and DJ Moore over him, but I'm concerned about Odunze too with Keenan Allen back. Odunze's coming off his best game of the season. I think one of these two guys is going to surprise. One of Odunze or Keenan Allen. I personally prefer Odunze over Keenan, and I am going to be starting Odunze in one of my leagues over guys like Greg Dortch, over guys like Demarcus Robinson in one of the deeper leagues that I'm in. But man, I'm thinking about it. Odunze versus Dortch, I think, is like a reasonable question to be asking yourself here on this great Sunday morning. But DJ Moore's got to be locked and loaded, started. He definitely has a really high floor and ceiling against this Rams defense. He's got at least 5 catches every single game. Locked and loaded. DJ Moore is a top 20 wide receiver. Roschon Johnson is the top projected running back in the matchup this week. They said, I'm very confused about what this Bears offensive coaching staff is doing this season. I think it's partly because they are confused about what they are supposed to be doing. Roschon Johnson was a healthy scratch, guys, in week 2 and week 1. Khalil Herbert was playing ahead of Roschon Johnson. And then in week 3, he comes in and he just plays immediately ahead of Khalil Herbert. Now they're saying he's going to be playing ahead of DeAndre Swift. Like, what changed here with Roschon versus Khalil? I'm just a little confused about that dynamic. Like, why was Khalil Herbert playing, Roschon wasn't, and then Roschon comes in and is suddenly ahead of Khalil Herbert? I like Roschon Johnson, by the way. He's actually my second most drafted running back in the over 500 underdog drafts I did. My most drafted running back was Braylon Allen. My second most drafted running back was Roschon Johnson around like 15, 16, 17, 18, because I like drafting running backs in those later rounds that catch passes. And Roschon is a capable pass catcher. We didn't really see a ton of it last week. He did have 5 targets, actually. He caught 4 of those for 32 yards. So we did see it a bit. He's a capable pass catcher, but what they're saying he's actually going to be the early down running back. He's never been the most efficient guy. 3.8 yards per carry, though. That was way better than DeAndre Swift. Obviously not good still. I don't want to start any of the running backs in this backfield. DeAndre Swift absolutely cannot be started. He's borderline droppable depending on how this game goes. Roschon is worth an ad, a speculative ad, though, I think, as potentially the top running back on this team. And my best ball teams are praying for Roschon Johnson this week. Cole Kmet, coming off a massive game, absolutely is startable right now with the current tight end landscape. The tight ends are brutal, guys, absolutely brutal. And we saw a real ceiling from Kmet last week. Also, the snap percentage is encouraging. Back-to-back games over 75% of the snaps for Cole Kmet. That's pretty massive at tight end. He's got back-to-back games with at least 5 targets. I think we'll look back. This will probably be Cole Kmet's best game of the season with 26 fantasy points. But the role completely shifted overnight for Cole Kmet too, from week 1 to weeks 2 and 3. I do expect that role to continue with how well he played. So yeah, definitely startable, top 10 tight end option this week. I would start Cole Kmet, for example, over Elijah Higgins, who's my favorite waiver wire tight end of the week. All right, on the Rams side of the ball, this offense is really just so scary to start in fantasy outside of Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams is a top 5 running back. We got him ranked number 4 this week. He was number 2 running back last week, 31.6 points last week. He had 3 touchdowns. He is not really coming off the field, 90% snap percentage. This is like the same role we saw him in last year. Doesn't matter that the Rams O-line sucks. Doesn't matter that the Rams overall offense is complete trash right now. Kyren Williams is going to be a must start in fantasy football every single week. He's going to see targets. He's going to see 20 plus carries if the game is close. He had 10 carries in the red zone last week. Arguably the best red zone role in the entire NFL is Kyren Williams. 24 carries, only 2 targets last week too. But if this game gets away from them, Kyren Williams definitely capable of more targets than that as well. Tutu Atwell is actually the number 1 wide receiver to start in this Rams offense. If you're going to start a receiver, he had a better role than he did earlier in the season. Last week, really, his role has grown every single week, both snap percentage wise, but his role jumped massively last week, 74% of snaps. He also had, I think, the most air yards on the team last week. But I think this receiver room is all pretty sketchy for fantasy. Definitely going to rotate a decent amount between these 3 guys. Good luck guessing which of these 3 guys to play. And Stafford's not startable against the Bears. Bears defense has been pretty underrated. What's the hype with Elijah Higgins? Yeah, so let's get to that one because I'm very excited that once again, the game I was most excited for last week, Cardinals-Lions, ended up being a bit of a disappointment, especially for Kyler with how he started in that game. But Elijah Higgins, guys, he's startable at tight end. So let me tell you a little bit about Elijah Higgins. Elijah Higgins is a converted wide receiver. Elijah Higgins, this is his second year in the NFL. Last season, when he was drafted, I actually think he was taken like the 6th round. I'll pull it up here. I think he was taken the 6th round of the NFL draft. He was a wide receiver in college, and he is 6'3", 235. Yeah, he was taken in the 6th round of last year's draft, the 20th overall pick by the Arizona Cardinals. They said, look, we think you're a very good receiver, but we actually want you to play tight end and be Trey McBride's direct backup. And now Trey McBride's out this week, and they have a converted wide receiver as his direct backup. Basically, a vast majority of the pass volume that's going to be left over at tight end is going to funnel to Elijah Higgins. That's not going to be all of the pass volume that was going to Trey McBride. Guys, Trey McBride has had the best volume in the entire NFL at tight end. So that's a huge hole left in terms of the target share in this team. Elijah Higgins, he has not played more than 45% of the snaps, except for week 2, where he scored 8.8 points. Elijah Higgins had a sweet touchdown in his catch for 18 yards in week 2. He's going to be out there for a career high percentage of snaps this week. I think he's going to play over 70% of snaps in this game. I think he's getting at least 4 targets in this game. You could do much worse than that at the tight end position. And the Commanders have weirdly been decent against tight ends, but I'm not really buying that as a sticky thing because their secondary has been trash. And again, you basically get to play wide receiver in your tight end slot with Elijah Higgins, which is pretty good for a matchup against the Commanders, especially with how the Commanders offense has been playing. Guys, this game is going to be extremely high scoring. This has got to be the highest scoring game of the week. Kyler's going to be able to keep pace in this one. This is the best possible matchup for passing offenses. But with how the Commanders looked last week, and it's not like the Cardinals defense has been great, this is going to be an extremely high scoring game. Guys, if you're just joining the YouTube Live, smash the like button. If you're just joining the TikTok Live, hit the follow button and come to the YouTube Live. The link is in the TikTok Live. The better viewing experience on the YouTube Live. We're looking at the Cardinals right now. You're starting Kyler Murray with a ton of confidence. You're starting Marvin Harrison Jr. within a tremendous amount of confidence. Both those guys are top 5 at their positions. James Conner's also a strong start this week. Down game for James Conner last week after going over 19 fantasy points back-to-back games. Down game for James Conner, but he still played actually a season-high percentage of the snaps. I think he's going to bounce back big time in a good matchup. He still has one of the better roles in the NFL. We got him projected over 80 rushing yards in this game. We have seen running backs do still pretty well against the Commanders. The Commanders secondary is the weakness of the defense, but still 3 straight games over 14 points for a running back. Zach Moss did it. Devin Singletary did it. Rashad White did it. And James Conner's probably going to do it as well. I like Michael Wilson a lot as a sleeper this week. One of Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Elijah Higgins. These are 3 great sleepers this week against the Commanders. I personally would rank them as Michael Wilson 1, Elijah Higgins 2, Greg Dortch 3 in terms of the sleepers and how much I like them this week at their respective positions. But yeah, Dortch or Wilson. Wilson, though, is definitely preferred over Dortch. He actually has a real role in this offense, a real deep passing role in this offense. He played a season-high 90% of the snaps last week, had 9 targets, 27% target share for Michael Wilson, and he turned it into 14 points. He could have a massive game here, but really it's Marvin Harrison Jr. that you absolutely need to start. All right. That's the Cardinals. The Commanders, though, I'm very intrigued about this one. Is Kyler Murray better than Jayden Daniels for fantasy? I think we're just going to know right after this game and how this game plays out between the Commanders and the Cardinals. Right now, we got Kyler's QB2, Jayden Daniels is QB3 this week. It's close, guys. By the way, the bold take I had for the season, Jayden Daniels straight up over Anthony Richardson, does not seem so bold 3 weeks into the season. Clearly, Jayden Daniels, a far superior passer than A-Rich. He looks like a better runner than A-Rich. I still think A-Rich has the better, goal line rusher, but that just hasn't meant much for him yet this season. Hasn't scored the rushing touchdowns this season, and Jayden Daniels still has. Brian Robinson, though. So Jayden Daniels, obviously you're starting Jayden Daniels. Brian Robinson Jr. is a top 5 running back this week, guys. We are way higher than B-Rob, than basically everybody in the Walter Picks app this week. The usage is just going to be so strong in a really good matchup. The Cardinals have been the best possible matchup for running backs this season. No team's been worse at the running back position. James Cook, 13 points. Kyron Williams, 15 points. Last week, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs combined for almost 40 total points against the Arizona Cardinals. Austin Eckler's out this week now. Even before Austin Eckler got hurt, Brian Robinson was seeing really strong volume. He had at least 16 carries in back-to-back games now. He's also seen way more targets than I expected, at least. He's seen 8 targets this season. With Austin Eckler out, it's going to be Jeremy McNichols stepping up in Austin Eckler's role. I do think McNichols plays like a real role in this game, but B-Rob is going to smash at least 20 touches I see coming for Brian Robinson in this game with Eckler out, and pretty good chance at a touchdown in what should be a really high-scoring game. So Brian Robinson needs to be started in all situations. I see someone saying, nice call saying to sit Wan'Dale Robinson. Yep, that was an L for me. We're going to take the L's. We're going to get plenty of L's, this season. Wan'Dale was an L for sure. Thursday night, he was in the Wan'Dale role still. The Wan'Dale role just happened to be 12 targets on Thursday night. I think I was underrating the target share potential a bit for Wandale, but the ceiling is still, not very exciting, I don't think, especially in half PPR, non-PPR formats. For sure for Wandale. Terry McLaurin, a decent start this week for sure. I would feel pretty good starting Terry McLaurin against the Arizona Cardinals. We saw really him break out last week, 20 points, by far his best game of the season. He was under 10 in 2 previous games. This is the best matchup of the season so far for Scary Terry. He's played over 80% of snaps. He's the clearly the best receiver on this team. A good start this week with Terry McLaurin. Zach Ertz, not the worst dart throw at tight end. He's had at least 5 points in all 3 games. That's actually a real floor at tight end. He's at least 4 targets in every game. And also, oddly, Ben Sinnott is just not playing like at all on this offense too. So that definitely is good for Zach Ertz's floor. 0 points for Ben Sinnott this season. He was getting drafted way too early in those best ball drafts before the season. All right, moving on to the next game here. By the way, I do like the Cardinals in this game to win. I think they are underdogs. Let me pull this up here. They're at home. They're 3.5-point favorites. This game does have the highest over/under of the week by far. Definitely a great game for fantasy. All right, let's go to this Pats 49ers game. A lot of stuff to talk through with this 49ers team. I'm seeing some comments in the TikTok live. I have George Kittle. This is a must bench. I would definitely prefer to bench George Kittle. Brian, we'll get to the thumbnail here in a second. I definitely think you should be benching Kittle if you can. We got him ranked as tight end 5 though. Oh gosh, I mean, it's gonna be tough to bench him. I'm scared. I'm scared about both Kittle and Debo in this game, and Ayuk a little bit too. This offense, for a short while was very predictable, very nice to be able to say, all right, Kittle's out, Debo's out, so it's going to be all Jawan Jennings and Ayuk, and maybe Sauber at the backup tight end for the 49ers. It's just not the case this week. Let me pull up the tight end rankings here. We got Kittle at number 5. Maybe he's not in must bench territory. That's maybe a little unfair. I am just a little scared. So he's coming off a hamstring injury. He still ranks as tight end 5. I think one of these guys is going to really disappoint. This is going to be a low-scoring game. This has one of the lowest over-unders of the week. Patriots are going to try to run the ball. The 49ers are going to try to run the ball. This is not a game where they're going to need to push George Kittle to his limit. Similar to I think what we saw in week 1. Also, the Patriots, they've been the stone-cold worst defense for tight ends this season. We've seen one good tight end game. That was from Tyler Conklin last week. Noah Fant did nothing. Mike Gesicki did nothing. I guess they have played really bad tight ends, to be fair. So the ceiling is there for Kittle. I'm just really scared about the floor, honestly, for George Kittle this week. I'm definitely playing Kelsey, Kincaid, Bowers, Goddard over him. I would consider all of those 4 pretty easy starts over Kittle. The reason I guess he's not a must bench is that, the rest of the tight ends are pretty abysmal too. I'm not going to start Sam Laporta over him. Not going to start Kyle Pitts over him. Not going to start Mark Andrews or Dalton Schultz or Cole Kmet or Elijah Higgins over him. So I'd move him out of must bench territory. Debo's also a risky start though. Definitely also a risky start. Let me go to the wide receiver rankings here on the live stream. Debo Samuel ranks as wide receiver 24. Ayuk ranks as wide receiver 28. Both these guys are much riskier starts now with all these guys active in this game. I thought this was going to be a big Ayuk bounce back performance because similar to T. Higgins, I'm thinking about Ayuk and T. Higgins very similarly right now. Neither of them has had a big game, but we know that they're good receivers, and we know that they're sort of fully ramped up to full speed now. 10 targets for Ayuk last week. 33% target share, just didn't convert them. Still not a game over 10 points for Ayuka the Bazooka yet. This is not a great secondary matchup, though. The Pats secondary is clearly the strength of the team. The Patriots are 11-point underdogs in this game, which also doesn't bode well for the passing environment in this one. If it's going to be a blowout, like it probably will be, I think I probably would play Debo over Ayuk. It's close, though. Debo has all the same concerns for me as Kittle. He plans to play. With a calf injury. Again, like all of these guys that are playing coming off these questionable tags, Debo Samuel, George Kittle. We were just talking about someone in the Saints game, Chris Olave. I think there's one more. That we talked, maybe we haven't talked through it yet. But all those guys. Oh, it's Keenan Allen. That's who we talked to. Keenan Allen, Debo Samuel, Chris Olave, George Kittle. All these guys have an added layer of risk this week. It's possible they re-aggravate these injuries or they just don't get their normal role because of the injuries. Still, though, you got to be starting Debo over a lot of different players this week if he's playing. So, yeah, all these guys are I think, risky starts. And Jordan Mason just locked and loaded. This year's Kyron Williams is Jordan Mason until Christian McCaffrey returns. That's just going to be the case. Super, super high floor, at least 75 rushing yards every single game this season. And the Pats have been pretty crushed by running backs so far this year. All right, let's go to the running back ranks here. Pull up the running back rankings on the YouTube live as well as we go to the next game here, which is the Chiefs-Chargers game. Sorry, I didn't talk about the Pats. I mean, there's basically nothing to talk about here, though. Mondre, he's startable. He's startable. That's it. That's as best you could say. Coming off a 0.3 point performance, definitely not a guy you need to be starting. I'm playing Elijah Higgins over Hunter Henry, like pretty easily. Honestly, Hunter Henry came crashing back down to earth. Guys, Hunter Henry's been under 4 points in 2 different games now. And this is a defense that ranks top 10 against tight ends this season. In the San Francisco 49ers, Conklin had 2 points. Munt had 3 points. Colby Parkinson had 5 points. They've also played pretty bad tight ends, man. The tight ends just in general are bleak. Hunter Henry's, in the start-sit conversation at tight end, which isn't saying much. And yes, I would play Elijah Higgins over him. Amari or Deontay, we're going to get to the Browns game here in a second. I do really like Deontay Johnson. I think that one's actually pretty close, though. I think I do have Deontay over Amari. I want to be starting Deontay in PPR like 100%. Jacoby Brissett ranks the bottom 3 quarterback. He arguably is the worst starting quarterback in the entire NFL. Definitely don't feel good about starting him. And then Pop Douglas, he's coming off a good game where he's had 15 fantasy points, 7 catches, 69 yards. But you just can't start guys in this Patriots offense with how low the touchdown ceiling is. That's why Mondre is really just a fringe start, not a must start. All right, going on to the Chiefs game. I do think this is going to be the bounce back Travis Kelce game we've been waiting for. I expect Travis Kelce to bounce back in kind of a big way. He's had some massive games against, pull up the tight end ranks here on the TikTok live and YouTube live. Kelce ranks as tight end 4 this week. We have not seen the big Travis Kelce game yet. I do think it's coming sooner rather than later. The only reason it might not come in this game is the Chiefs are 7.5 point favorites. Herbert is going to be playing, but there's offensive line injuries. We're going to get to the Chargers in a second. But yeah, Kelce needs to be started for sure. He's still a top 5 tight end in our projections. Rashee Rice, locked and loaded, is one of the highest floors, maybe the highest floor in the entire NFL at the wide receiver position is actually Rashee Rice. He's had at least 17 points in all 3 games. Target share numbers are ludicrous, over 26% target share in 3 straight. He had 14 targets last week. The Chargers secondary is definitely one that's been pretty fruitful for receivers too. We saw Calvin Austin, George Pickens do okay against them last week. Actually, the Panthers receivers, they did nothing. That was Bryce Young, and then Adams, Jacoby Myers, they did okay. Not as fruitful actually as I thought for the receivers, but yeah, Rashee Rice is just must start with these types of target totals from Mahomes. I also think Xavier Worthy, he's definitely in flex consideration this week. We actually got a little bit lucky in retrospect. I had Xavier Worthy as a must start in that first game of the season. He ended up scoring 2 touchdowns on 3 touches, and that role has actually been pretty consistent through the first couple of games. He has got 2 catches and a couple of carries in every single game. They got to get Xavier Worthy more involved. This offense needs Xavier Worthy to play a real role in this offense, and I do think he's capable of playing a real role in this offense. He had a real role in his college offense. He was not this gadget guy in his college offense. He had an actual route tree in college. I think Xavier Worthy needs to grow into that for this offense to really be what it needs to be without Marquise Brown in the offense. This Mahomes and the passing attack have not looked like what you would expect heading into this season. I do think Xavier Worthy, I'm going to be playing in my flex slot in some leagues, still has a really high ceiling. Definitely still has a really, really high ceiling. Seeing a Juwan Jennings or Swift question. Oh gosh, man, in the TikTok live, that's brutal. You can't start Swift. You got to start Juwan Jennings. You cannot start Swift. I'm playing Kmet over Elijah Higgins. He's the last tight end. I'm playing over Elijah Higgins. All right, let's get to the rest of this team. The running backs, guys. You can't start any of these running backs other than Carson Steele. He's the only running back you could possibly consider starting for the Chiefs. Kareem Hunt's going to be active today. His prop line's at 12.5 rushing yards. Piron's lines are at like 17.5. Steele's is in the 40s. He's the only guy that has a real ceiling. Not a horrible matchup. He did play decent last week, but still only finished with, what did he finish with? Like 10 points. Yeah, 8.4 points. No touchdown for Carson Steele. He did see 62% of the snaps, 17 carries. But with Kareem Hunt active, you do got to wonder if this is the ceiling for Carson Steele, not the floor. So definitely curious to see where Kareem Hunt mixes in. But none of these running backs are guys I really want to start in fantasy. Chiefs defense ranks as defense 1 this week. I do like this a lot against the Chargers, banged up O-line, Justin Herbert injured. I think the Chiefs are going to do really well defensively in this game. On to the other side of the ball then for this game, the Chargers, there's really not a single must start in this team. Justin Herbert can't be started. with the bad offensive line, bad matchup, and the injury. J.K. Dobbins, also really not a must start. He ranks as a top 30 running back this week, but similar to last week, I'm a little bit concerned for him in this matchup against the Chiefs. They're 7.5-point underdogs. He only had 8 points last week. He still had good volume. He actually had by far his highest rush share of the season, and he continues to see just a ton of volume. But I don't know if the volume is going to be enough in this matchup against the Chiefs. Definitely intrigued to see where his role ends up shaking out in this game. He's startable, though. Don't get me wrong. He's not a must bench. J.K. Dobbins is just not a must start. He's not a must bench either. He's probably going to get over right around 20 touches in this game. He's been really efficient every game except the game against a really good Steelers defense. I just think this is also a really good defense. And I also think the offensive line injuries, Herbert's immobility, this whole offense is teetering on the brink of just being terrible. Ladd McConkey, by the way, he's looked good. I actually think buying Ladd McConkey right now makes sense. He also has a really tough matchup this week. So after this week might actually be a good buy opportunity. Go through the buy, get Justin Herbert healthy. He has seen pretty solid target shares. I think he's pretty clearly the best receiver on the team. This matchup has been okay, not great against the Chiefs. Drake London, Darnell Mooney did okay last week. McConkey does also, I feel like, bode well. Like his role kind of bodes well with the Justin Herbert injuries and the quick passes. Quentin Johnson, like quietly having a breakout season, over 12 points in back-to-back games, but he's off the fantasy radar right now too. And Josh Palmer's done nothing, cannot be started by any means. All right, let's get to this next game between the Browns and the Raiders. Definitely continuing to watch this offense really closely. There's been, I've never really seen this much of public asking for a quarterback to be benched than what we're seeing this season with Deshaun Watson. I mean, I've seen it everywhere. Everyone's begging for Deshaun to be benched. They've given him one of the biggest contracts in NFL history. They cannot bench him. And if the coach benches him, then he's basically just directly going against the management of the team. So either the coach gets fired by benching him, or the management gets fired when they bench him and Jameis Winston comes in. The thing, though, I think that is getting a little bit overlooked in all this Deshaun Watson discussion, and don't get me wrong, Deshaun's played bad. I'm not trying to make the excuses for Deshaun here, but the offensive line has also been abysmal. This is arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL right now. They got multiple injuries to their starting offensive line, and you look at some of the pressure numbers, and Deshaun's been pressured more than any quarterback in the entire NFL, and that is partially on Deshaun not getting the ball out quick enough. It's also partially that this offensive line is trash. And I say this not to defend Deshaun, because Deshaun's been bad, and I do think there's a good argument to just bench him for the Browns, but to say that I'm not sure Jameis Winston's going to come in and just suddenly be way better. You know, that's what we saw with Flacco last season, but Flacco was playing behind a top 5 offensive line. This is a bottom 5 offensive line right now with all the injuries. So I'm skeptical that Jameis Winston, if he came in, it's just suddenly going to fix this offense. I think the offense is still going to struggle, and it might actually just be even a worse situation for the coaching staff and the management when they bench Deshaun and Jameis comes in and does even worse. Then what do you do? Then you're in a really rough spot. So yeah, I think Deshaun probably continues to start, and not a horrible matchup for him here against the Raiders, but it's a harder matchup than he's had in his first 3 games. His first 3 games were all really good matchup in game environments for quarterbacks, has yet to go over 20 fantasy points. We got to see Deshaun turn this around to get excited about this offense. Amari Cooper is a good start this week. Let me go to the wide receiver rankings here again on the TikTok and YouTube lives as we come up on talking to some about these wide receivers. We're going to get to hundreds of start sits here coming up too, guys. We're almost there. Actually, in the start sit section of the live stream, we're almost through every single game. I think we only have 4 games left to talk through here. All right, so the Browns-Raiders game. The Browns are favored by 2.5 points in this game too. Amari Cooper, definitely a good spot for him. The Raiders secondary has not been great. Ladd McConkey had 15, Zay Flowers had 22, Deontay Johnson had 26 against this team. Amari Cooper's usage has been really strong. Amari Cooper's been a clear buy, like a very, very clear buy this whole season. He's at least 8 targets every single week. I do think if this offensive line can just protect Deshaun or Winston just a little bit more, Amari Cooper's a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy football with this type of usage. We really saw it come through for the first time last week against the Giants. He had 27.6 points. He was a top 5 wide receiver last week, guys. Definitely a must-start guy here in week 4. Jerome Ford, his role has been a little confusing. Week 1 was great. Week 2 just changed suddenly, and then week 3 just changed right back. So definitely still startable here for Jerome Ford. Hopefully this pattern doesn't continue or just completely changes every other week. But I certainly believe week 1 and week 3 is more likely to be what we see moving forward. Nick Chubb, by the way, apparently could start practicing this week. That's exciting news for the Browns, much earlier than I would have expected. Still don't think he's that close to necessarily returning to full game speed. But we could see definitely Nick Chubb on a football field in the next month or so, which is very encouraging. Judy is definitely potentially startable in this game too. Not a bad matchup for Judy. Sneaky floor for Judy this season, at least 8 points. in every single game. His underlying numbers have also been really strong, at least 6 targets in every game. The Browns have been throwing a lot too, which has been good for these receivers for fantasy. I do think you could do worse than Judy in your flex slot. Elijah Moore well off the radar. Maybe we should start calling it the Elijah Moore role instead of the Wan'Dale Robinson role, because that's really the role maybe that we're trying to explain there. Whereas Wan'Dale can get enough targets to make him actually startable in fantasy. Debo is supposed to play. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, all tons of risk in fantasy this week. All right, let's get to the Raiders side of the ball. So the Raiders are in shambles really right now. The whole Raiders team kind of in shambles. They're without Max Crosby in this game. They're without Devontae Adams in this game. They're also without Michael Mayer in this game. Brock Bowers to the moon, guys. Brock Bowers is going to absolutely smash in this role. And even if he doesn't smash, like the floor is just so elite. I think this is also a pretty good look here. Storyline I'm following closely here again. Is Brock Bowers the top fantasy tight end with Adams out? Last week I was wondering, is he just the top tight end straight up? I don't think he's the top tight end straight up with Adams in, just based on last week and what we saw from him in comparison to some of the other top tight ends. 7.1 points for him last week, floor game against the Panthers in a pretty good matchup. The Browns are not a great matchup, but he's going to see 10 targets, guys, in this game. Like he could easily get to north of 10 targets in this game. No Adams and no Michael Mayer. No Michael Mayer is also kind of a big deal. I don't think Bowers can really come off the field much in this one. He's got to play at least 70% of snaps. He's going to be out there every single passing play. He is the number one receiver for the Raiders in this game. It's him, then it's Myers, then it's Trey Tucker. And the backfield, not adding too much either. I'm very intrigued about Zamir White in this game. We're going to get to the free player props here coming up in a second, I promise. I've already talked about a few of them and teased a couple of them, but actually I think I have 2 or 3 free player props after cashing on Thursday night. But yeah, Myers, Bowers, the only 2 guys you can really start. Trey Tucker's not a bad flex option. Trey Tucker had a 56-yard catch last week. He also scored a touchdown. Last week, he was a top 10 wide receiver last week. Reminds me a lot of Rashid Shaheed. I feel he's a slightly worse version of Rashid Shaheed, playing a similar kind of role. With Adams out, definitely flex consideration there for Trey Tucker, but definitely not a smash either. I do like Jacoby Myers' floor a little bit more, and Bowers is just like one of the 2 tight ends this week with an actual floor for Brock Bowers, an actual floor for Dallas Goedert. I would play Goedert over Bowers because Goedert has a better matchup than Bowers. But other than that, I mean, real argument that Bowers should actually be tight end 1 this week. Definitely a real argument there. I do think that the Browns win this one against the crumbling Raiders. The Raiders have defensive injuries. They got a bunch of injuries on the offensive side of the ball too. And then Zamir White, man, I mean, at what point, I'm glad we got to this game finally, because one of the very sneaky storylines I'm watching that nobody probably cares about other than me, especially with the prop line that I'm riding this week, which we'll get to in a second. But they got to get Dylan Lobb active. How is Dylan Lobb not active on this team? They got no Devontae Adams. They got no Michael Mayer. They're out here running Zamir White, Alexander Madison, and Amir Abdullah ahead of, I think they're one of their best pass-catching playmakers in Dylan Lobb. They got to get him active, man. This week makes too much sense to get Dylan Lobb active. Get Dylan Lobb active. I'd be excited to see him in his first NFL run. A really good pass-catching running back, arguably a wide receiver in college, not even a running back. But Zamir White, he's been horrible this season. Madison's stolen 2 touchdowns from him too, but he's gone under 7 points in every single game. He's been incredibly inefficient on the ground, under 3.5 yards per carry every single game. He only ran 3 routes last week, guys. Zamir White is a touchdown-dependent running back on a team led by Gardner Minshew that's not going to score very many points, and he's splitting the red zone role with Madison. Just big-time yikes. He really should be droppable in fantasy leagues very soon. Juwan Jennings, I do not think is startable, guys, in fantasy this week with Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk all active in this game. I get he's coming off one of the best games of the season and of like recent history, Juwan Jennings. But still, with all these guys back, I don't think you can just trust Juwan Jennings in your lineup this week. None of these running backs can be trusted, but just get Dylan Lobb active is my main point here in this game. Would make too much sense, I think, this week for that to happen. I do really hope that does happen. Now, we got 3 games left to talk through. We got the Sunday night game, then 2 Monday night games. Then we're going to get to the free player props, talk to the DraftKings lineup. Then we're going to get to start sits, rapid fire in the comment section. Shout out to everybody in this live stream right now. Guys, we are live on TikTok. We are live on YouTube. If you're watching live on TikTok, hit the follow button. Come to the YouTube live. It's a better viewing experience. I can share my screen to what we're talking about. I can pull up comments on screen. If you're watching live on YouTube, guys, smash the like button, hit the subscribe button. And guys, I know I haven't got to start sits yet. We're going to get to a bunch of start sits comments coming up here in like probably 20-ish minutes. But also download the Walter Picks app. If you haven't downloaded the Walter Picks app, I'm showing it on screen right now on the YouTube live. But It's going to help you with so many start sit questions, trade questions. Also helps you with player props. It's a free app. You can download it in the TikTok bio, in the YouTube description. Ooh, Ridley versus Shaheed. That's actually a pretty good one. I probably would lean. I think I'd lean Ridley there. I got the wide receiver ranks up right here. Yeah, it's Ridley over Shaheed for me. Definitely a close one. All right, let's get to the Bills-Ravens game. Another really good game this week. Probably the best game of the week, honestly. I was really surprised to see the Bills underdogs in this game. Should the Bills really be underdogs in any game? I'm not convinced the Bills should be underdogs in a single matchup, really, right now. I mean, maybe if they're in Kansas City, but otherwise, the Bills need to be favored, I think, in every game. I do like the Bills to win this one against the Ravens. Guys, Josh Allen has never lost a game by more than 6 points. Let that sink in for a second. That basically means Josh Allen is never out of a game in the history of his career. Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. The Ravens defense has not been great this season. Yeah, Josh Allen, QB1, James Cook, a good start. Khalil Shakir, top 25 receiver. He's a good start too. And Dalton Kincaid, tight end 3. The only tight ends I like more than Kincaid this week, Dallas Goedert and Brock Bowers. That's it. End of list. None of these other receivers can be started though. It's Cook, Shakir, Kincaid, Allen. That's it. No one else can be even considered to be started. And on the Ravens side of the ball, Lamar in a pretty good game environment here against the Bills. This game should be pretty close. Lamar is by far the highest rushing line among quarterbacks, and you can see why. He's coming off 2 games, 2 of his 3 games, over 30% of the carries for Lamar. He's at 7.3 yards per carry this season. He's got at least 45 rushing yards in every single game. I get a matchup against the Bills. Bills defense has actually been a pretty tough matchup for the quarterbacks. Kyler Murray only had 14 points. Tua got hurt against the Bills, and then they played Trevor Lawrence. I do think Lamar probably is the better game than all of these games that we saw before. Derrick Henry, he's got a pretty good history against the Bills. We've seen him coming off his best game this season against the Dallas Cowboys. The Bills have been a decent matchup for running backs at times this season. James Conner, Devon Achane, both were top 10 running backs. Last week, the Jaguars offense just completely crumbled. And then Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. I would play Andrews over Likely. Andrews is not a must-start tight end, but with the current tight end landscape, he definitely can be strongly considered. Go to the running back rankings. I got you. So, yeah, I like the Bills in this game. I really don't think anyone other than Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, and Lamar you should feel great about in your lineup. But Andrews is startable at tight end because of how bad the tight ends are. All right, let's get to the 2 Monday night games. So 2 good games here. Definitely the Seahawks Lions game I'm probably most excited about. You got to start DK Metcalf this week. You got to start Jackson Smith and Jigba this week. And I like Geno Smith as a start this week too. I like all 3 of these guys in this matchup. A very good matchup for them against the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions secondary, this is another one of these pass funnel defenses. Decent defensive line, but bad secondary. They either get sacks or they get torched deep down the field. DK Metcalf has been cooking the last couple of weeks. We saw Cooper Kupp go for 30 points against this defense. Chris Godwin had a 25-point game. Last week, Marvin Harrison Jr. and Michael Wilson combined over 30 points. At least 2 of these receivers, DK Metcalf, JSN, Tyler Lockett, are going to play well in this game. I like both these guys a lot. I think both have a really high floor and high ceiling. And Geno Smith is absolutely startable. Top 10 quarterback this week. It does sound like Kamara is going to play this week. I'm seeing that in the TikTok live comments. All right, Charbonnet. Kenneth Walker's back this week. Really murky situation for both these running backs. I would prefer Kenneth Walker over Zach Charbonnet, but with how good Zach Charbonnet played, with Kenneth Walker out, you got to wonder how much of a committee is this going to be? How much are they going to push Kenneth Walker in his first game back? Another one of these Debo Samuel, George Kittle type situations, Keenan Allen type situations this week with Kenneth Walker. I really don't want to start Kenneth if I don't need to. I'd much prefer to start a lot of different running backs over Kenneth Walker. I would be playing Tony Pollard over him, Jerome Ford over him, David Montgomery, Zach Moss, Ramondre Stevenson, Cam Akers, assuming Mixon's out. I'd play over him Aaron Jones, Travis Etienne, Devon Achane, Najee Harris, Chuba Hubbard. I'd play over him. Brian Robinson Jr. play over him very easily. So Kenneth Walker, another one of these guys, you've got to go see what this role is in his first game back. I do kind of think if he's at full health, he gets back that really valuable role. But this is also not a great matchup for the running backs against the Lions. And then on the Lions side of the ball, the Seahawks guys, they have 3 starting defensive linemen out in this game. And there's a couple others that are questionable. They had 5, I think it was 5 players on Friday in their front 7, their starting front 7 on defense, the defensive line and the linebackers, all didn't practice. 5 of the 7 on Friday. 3 of them already ruled out. A couple more could potentially not play or be limited in this game. That's a smash situation for Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Both these guys should be in your starting lineups this week. Both David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, really high floor, really high ceiling in this game, especially if the Seahawks passing offense can keep pace in this game. So yeah, I feel really good about both these running backs. Monterey St. Brown, not much to talk about there. He's a top 5 wide receiver play. Sam Laporta's playing this week. A little bit surprising. Sam Laporta picked up a low ankle sprain in the game last week. Tried to come back in, wasn't able to, then came back out. Super disappointing season so far for Sam Laporta. He ranks still as a top 10 tight end, a top 6 tight end. You do kind of have to start Sam Laporta if you got him, unless you have Brock Bowers, unless you have Dallas Goedert, Travis Kelce, then you're playing Sam Laporta. You just kind of have to play Sam Laporta with him playing. But yeah, definitely another one of these guys, a little bit risky, potentially doesn't get his full role, potentially has a chance of re-injury too. But yeah, you still have to play Sam Laporta in most spots with the current landscape of the tight end position. Waymo Jamo, by the way, one of my biggest misses of the season last week with Waymo Jamo. I liked his props. I played him in daily drafts. I had him in DFS. Waymo Jamo, huge disappointment. I definitely am less bullish on him this week. Very intrigued to see what his role ends up being this week, though, after a really disappointing week 3. Not a bad matchup for him. He still has a ceiling. He still is startable. Just not as bullish on him as I was this time last week. All right, last game to get through. Titans and the Dolphins. Titans offense is absolutely crumbling right now. Will Levis has been the most turnover-prone quarterback in the entire NFL. Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, I think both are startable. I still like Ridley more than Hopkins. I actually still think Ridley's one of the most underrated fantasy receivers in the NFL. At least he has a really high weekly ceiling. This is the best passing environment for the Titans so far this season. Last season, too, when Will Levis came to Miami, he actually had one of his best games of his career. This game is in Miami. I think Ridley's actually a sneaky PPR start. I'll be starting him in a couple of leagues. I think his ceiling is a little bit underrated. Bad game last week, but this whole offense just fell apart last week. DeAndre Hopkins, too, he had a good game against the Dolphins last season, too. I don't think he's must-start territory, but he's definitely startable. We got him projected just over 10 points. Will Levis is off the fantasy radar for sure. Tony Pollard also kind of in a sneaky good environment here against the Dolphins. The Dolphins were crushed by James Cook. They were crushed by Zach Charbonnet. In their last 2 games, they've allowed over 25 points to the starting running back. Tony Pollard, definitely a sneaky play too. Tajay Spears was involved a little bit more last week through the air, but he still didn't get a big rush share. He only played 37% of the snaps, 30% route participation, 18% rush share, but he did a 12% target share for Spears. Pollard is the clear starting running back on this team. Spears can't be started. Pollard should be started. I like Ridley as a flex play. Hopkins, not a bad flex play either, just in general. And then the Dolphins side of the ball, we got Tyler Huntley playing the quarterback. Got to expect it to be better than Tim Boyle, who's the backup. Tim Boyle should not be, I don't think, on an NFL roster. Really shocked, honestly, that the Dolphins didn't go out, get Mike White or Ryan Tannehill, at least as the backup here. Really tough quarterback situation again, but Huntley should be better than Skylar Thompson. At least Achane is still a must start. I've been buying Tyreek Hill in fantasy really since the Tua injury happened. As soon as it became clear that it seems like Tua is probably going to come back, I've been buying him in fantasy really since then. And I do think he's got a sneaky floor this week as well. Good matchup against the Titans. Titans are a pass funnel defense to some extent. I actually think the running backs have done okay against the Titans too. The fifth best defense against the running backs last week, though. Yeah, the last couple of weeks they've been crushed by the running backs. Emmanuel Wilson, Josh Jacobs over 20 points, Breece Hall, Brandon Allen combined for over 40 points against this Dolphins defense. Sorry, against the Seahawks. Not the Seahawks, the Titans defense, excuse me. Devon Achane, though, definitely still a must start. Mostert is questionable in this game. It does sound like Mostert's going to come back, but they're saying he's going to try to play. Like the verbiage around Raheem Mostert seems pretty ominous with multiple weeks he's had to get healthy now. Hard to see him getting a huge workload. I think Achane just pretty clearly locked and loaded as the clear starting running back on this team and the only running back you can play in fantasy. We've also seen Jalen Wright be pretty disappointing. We've got Alec Ingold projected ahead of Jalen Wright this week, and Jeff Wilson, well off the radar too. Waddle, I would much rather start Tyreek Hill than Waddle. Both these guys obviously much worse without Tua, but to me, Tyreek still has a really high ceiling, whereas Waddle's ceiling isn't quite as high with Tua out. All right, that's every game. We got through every single game. We got through every single relevant player in every single game. Notable, by the way, Tyler Huntley averaging 8 carries per game, or like right around 8.5 carries per game in his last 10 starts. He has started some games in the past. Definitely intrigued to see what his rushing role looks like and how that impacts this whole offense. All right, let's get to the free player props. I know there's probably some comments asking for those, and we will get to those here in a second. But let's just talk through the free player props. So I have 3 free player props. They're probably not that surprising based on some of those breakdowns I was just giving. So number 1. So first of all, we're 8-4 this season. We're 8-4. We hit the Dow to 1 last night. We're undefeated on Thursday nights. We're hitting twice as much as we're missing. That's great to see so far. We're going to try to go 3-0 on Sunday today. So Stephon Diggs, over 60.5 receiving yards. The floor for Diggs this week is close to 60 receiving yards. I love taking these props where the floor is close to the prop line because last week, guys, he had a 28% target share. Tank Dell is out this week. He's had at least 6 targets in every single game. He had 94 receiving yards last week. His floor is 40 yards. His floor is 40 yards. Again, I think the Texans' passing offense probably is his best day of the season here. I like Steph Diggs a lot this week. I think he's really underrated, really heading into this week 4. And then I also like Zamir White under 1.5 receptions. I'm pretty surprised this is set at 1.5. Guys, he ran 3 total routes last week. He ran 3 routes, and his line's at 1.5 receptions. He's not a great receiving back. He did crush this line twice this season, to be fair. He had 2 targets in week 1. Actually, he caught both his targets in week 1, caught 3 of his 4 targets in week 2. So he's 2 for 3 against his prop line, but like the role is clearly dropping here for Zamir White. I do think they're going to be trailing in this game, which is maybe a little scary. But yeah, I like this Zamir White one a lot, especially because I think there's a chance Dylan Lobb's active and that Zamir White's suddenly the 4th best pass catching running back on the team. Honestly, wouldn't even be that crazy if Zamir White barely played, in this game. And then Elijah Higgins. I think Elijah Higgins, another really good sleeper this week. I like him over 23.5 receiving yards. He's capable of beating this in a single play. He hasn't beaten this yet, but he's going to be in a much bigger role with Trey McBride out. I think he's going to have a season high in both receptions and yards today, which is going to firmly put him over this line. Again, this is really close to the Elijah Higgins floor. His floor is 20 yards, and the line's at 23.5. So yeah, I like Elijah Higgins a lot this week. Those are the 3 free player props. Make sure, by the way, guys, you download the Walter Picks app. If you have not downloaded the Walter Picks app yet, I do not know what you are waiting for. I've spent the last 4 years of my life helping build this app for all of you. It can help you with your start sits. It can help you with player props. Link is in the TikTok bio. Link is in the YouTube description. All right. Let's get to some of these start sits, man. We're going to go rapid fire here for the next couple of hours and make sure we get to all of the start sits. All right, Kyle, let's start with you, man. Good morning, Sam, the GOAT. Happy week 4. Pick 2, Michael Wilson, D-Hop, Addison, Mooney. All right, let's go to the wide receiver ranks here. Let me know in the comments, too, if you just want any of the specific rankings up. I got the rankings ready on the YouTube and TikTok Live to help answer some of these questions. So, yeah, I do like Michael Wilson a lot. I really don't love Addison. I'm interested to see. Mooney's obviously coming off a good game. Addison's going to project better against the Packers. Hopkins projects a little bit better. Let's see, where's Mooney rank? Yeah, it's Addison. Man, the matchup for Michael Wilson is just so good, though. Let's take Hopkins out of here and put in Mooney for a second. Likely or Henry? Yeah, I think it's Henry. I think it's Henry over Likely. Let's just read the latest on Addison. Set to return. Ankle injury during training camp. Tweaked his other ankle in week 1. I honestly think it's Michael Wilson. Maybe a slightly higher ceiling for Addison. But the matchup for Michael Wilson, man, this is close. Definitely a close one. I think I'd play both these guys over Darnell Mooney. And Hopkins is definitely in the consideration here. You said pick 2. So, yeah, I think I'd probably just go with Michael Wilson and Jordan Addison. Bench Hop, bench Mooney. 1 tight end and 1 QB. Yeah, I'm playing Higgins over Ertz. I think I'm playing Higgins over Ertz, yeah. 1 spot ahead of Ertz. It's a floor ceiling thing, obviously, here with Higgins versus Ertz. Let me pull up the tight end rankings. I'm seeing a lot of Juwan Johnson questions. Let me get the tight end ranks here. I'm playing Higgins over Ertz. I'm playing Higgins over Parkinson, over Noah Fant, over Hunter Henry. I'm playing Higgins over Otten, over Likely as well. Don't love Isaiah Likely this week. And then Fields or Burrow. Yeah, I think this one's Burrow. I think you got to go Burrow over Fields. Here's the quarterbacks I'm starting Fields over. Let me pull these up here for a second. I would play Burrow over Geno Smith. I play Burrow over Fields. I play Burrow over Purdy, over Darnold. I'm playing Fields, though, over Purdy, over Darnold. I'm playing Fields over Mayfield, Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, Caleb Williams, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff, some Deshaun. I'm playing Fields over guys like that. I'm not going to play Fields over Burrow, though. Burrow's coming off a good game. Got his receivers healthy now, too, which is definitely massive for him. All right, let's get to Godwin or Achane, PPR. Oh, this is a good one here in the YouTube live, guys. We're going rapid fire, by the way. What do I think of the Raiders receivers? Yeah, it's Jacoby Myers and Trey Tucker. Myers is the floor play. Trey Tucker's the ceiling play. I like Trey Tucker, though. He's kind of like a Rashid Shaheed type of guy. All right, Godwin, wide receiver 7 versus the running back 16. It's going to be Godwin. Yep, it's Godwin. It's PPR, it's Godwin. Can't be benching Godwin in this game against the Eagles. Kmet or Andrews? Oh, gosh. I mean, the tight ends, man, they're bleak. And I think that Andrews is going to project better. This is a really close one, honestly. I think they're two spots ahead, 2 spots apart in the rankings here between Kmet and Andrews. Weatherman Sam does have an update to share here in a second. Actually, it's probably a good time to share this Weatherman Sam update. Forgot to put this hat on the last Weatherman Sam update. We haven't had a ton of Weatherman Sam updates, but Weatherman Sam is here for you guys all season. And I'm here to help us not overreact to the weather. And there's some stuff to report today for sure. So first of all, there's really only one game that I have some moderate concern about. 15 to 20 mile an hour winds in this Rams and Bears game. Wind gusts up to 25 miles an hour. That's the threshold that we start to get a little concerned about. Up to, though. Not over 25, up to. So just like very moderate passing concern in this game. Enough that it starts at like this one that's up on the screen right now between Andrews and Kmet. Yeah, I'm just going to go Andrews. In a potentially big high-scoring game, where the Ravens are playing from behind against the Bills, I'm just going to go Andrews over Cole Kmet. But I'm not like you need to bench all these Bears players. Like, I don't think you need to bench DJ Moore, and I'm fine starting Cole Kmet over a bunch of guys. Like, I'd still start Cole Kmet over Elijah Higgins, for example. And then there's some other games here with some rain. Nothing concerning though. So there's going to be some rain. Just so you're not surprised, going to be some rain in the Eagles-Bucks game. That game has the most downpour rain potential, but it's almost definitely not going to be throughout the whole game. It's going to be pockets of the game. And then Bengals, Panthers, Bills, Ravens, also going to have some level of rain, most likely. Nothing of concern. No wind of concern. Guys, there's no data suggesting even heavy rain impacts games that much from the offensive production standpoint. So nothing to be super concerned about other than this Bears-Rams game does have just a little bit of concerning wind, just a little bit on that line of 25 mile an hour winds. Other than that, nothing too concerning. That's the Weatherman Sam report of the day. So yeah, I'm going Andrews over Kmet. It's a tough call for sure. Understand not wanting to start Andrews. Start Akers, Roschon, Swift, Braylon Allen. Akers, Roschon, Swift, or Braylon Allen. So do not start Swift. I don't want to start Roschon Johnson either. And again, I think I might be the person rooting the most for Roschon of all people. I don't know how he ended up on all of my best ball teams, but here he is. We're in week 4. He's supposedly starting running back. He makes his running back 31. It's Akers over Braylon Allen and Roschon, assuming Mixon ends up being out, which I do think is going to be the case. Mixon will be out today. Not a surprise. That just got reported 9 minutes ago, actually. Mixon is officially out. So yeah, it's definitely Akers. It's Akers. Akers ranks as running back 19. Akers is absolutely startable now. He had 9.9 points. This is a much better matchup for Akers. He's going to get the backfield to himself. No Dameon Pierce again. Akers over all those guys. Akers over Braylon Allen, I think, pretty easily too. My two most drafted running backs in that question, Braylon Allen and Roschon Johnson in rounds 15 and 16. Show the running backs. Yeah, I got you with the running back rankings here. So that's not the running backs. This should be the running backs. Pull the running backs here too on the YouTube live. Let's get to some running back start sits. Waddle, T. Higgins. Yeah, T. Higgins easily. Definitely easily. Oh, Dunze or Addison. I think I'd go Addison there. Play Higgins over Muth. Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely would. Let's pull up the tight ends here again. Yeah, I'm playing Elijah Higgins over Pratt Freiermuth pretty easily. Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy. That's definitely a close one. Reed or Achan. I think, oh man, this one's close. Let's go to this Reader. Seeing a decent amount of Achan questions this week, which is interesting. Does kind of make sense. I would play Godwin over Achan. We just answered that one. Guys, if you're watching live on the TikTok live, by the way, shout out to everyone that's live stream. Seriously, this is like one of my favorite things to do every single week. I feel very grateful that I get to consider this a part of my full-time job. We are live on TikTok and YouTube. If you're watching live on TikTok, guys, smash the follow button. Come to the YouTube live. We got to share our screen on the YouTube live. Pull up comments up on the YouTube live. It's a better viewing experience. I'm telling you, link is right in the TikTok bio. Watch live on YouTube. Smash the like button. Hit that like button. Helps me out way more than you possibly could realize. Yeah, it's Achan over Reed. I was actually very curious about this one. It's not a bad matchup for Reed. High ceiling for Reed. I don't want to bench Achan. To be clear, I do not want to bench Achan. I will bench him for a guy like Chris Godwin. Yeah, I'm playing Achan over Reed. Brian Robinson, guys, is locked and loaded as a top 5 running back. There's not going to be a start-sit question today where I tell someone to bench Brian Robinson. There's no Austin Eckler. It's a fantastic matchup for Brian Robinson. McLaurin, Debo, T, Akers. Thanks, Sammy. I got you, Ravi. Great to see you in the live again. Shout out to everybody in this live stream. Sending good vibes to everybody on this Sunday morning. Week 4, we got a great slate of games coming up in, 3 hours on our TV screens. It's going to be great. I got good vibes for this week. All right, McLaurin, Debo, T, Akers. Yeah, so with these options, you're not playing Akers. You said pick 2. Yeah, he's still not going to be playing Akers, I don't think, over any of these guys. Even with the backfield to himself, I still think I'd prefer all 3 of these guys probably over Akers. These wide receiver decisions pretty close, though. And, wow, I was actually going to say to bench Debo. I honestly think the answer here is bench Debo. I think I still would bench Debo here. We got Debo slightly ahead of McLaurin in the projections. I just think there's some added layer of risk with Debo Samuel coming off the injury. Kittle's also playing. Ayuk's also playing. They're 11-point favorites over the Patriots. So this game could just not be close. They might not even play in the fourth quarter, pushing it in the fourth quarter. Meanwhile, T. Higgins and McLaurin, they have no health concerns and much less game environment concerns as well for both those guys. I think in a situation like this, I'm fine benching Debo Samuel. All right, Keenan Allen, Chris Olave, and Rachaad White. Oh, yikes, Andrew. These are all 3 guys that are questionable. Were questionable this week, and you can't start Keenan Allen this week. Of all 3 of these guys, you cannot start Keenan Allen. There's just no way you can feel good about starting Keenan Allen. They set his prop lines in the 20s. Guys, if you really think Keenan Allen's going to be good this week, then just go take his over, 24.5, 27.5 receiving yards, whatever they set it at. Just go take that and leave him out of your fantasy lineup because there's just so much risk with Keenan Allen in this game. He didn't even do great week 1. It is a good matchup. There's just no way they push Keenan Allen to his limit coming off the heel injury that he's been bothered by. Chris Olave, Rachaad White also are questionable. Rachaad White with an illness. I think Olave is the answer here. Oh, you got to start 2. Oh, man. Yeah, I think it's Olave and White. I think you got to bench Keenan Allen. But, yeah, Olave is a good start outside the hamstring stuff. He's also at risk of reduced role, potentially re-aggravation of the injury. He's still honestly at risk of potentially just not playing. I think he is going to play. Does sound like he's going to play. I think Rachaad White is still startable, though, for sure, even with Bucky getting a little bit more work on the ground. I play Terry McLaurin over Rachaad White. I'm playing Achan versus Mason. I think it's Mason. Yeah, it's Mason over Achan. Good matchup for Jordan Mason this week. You don't want to be benching Jordan Mason. McLaurin or Pollard. Oh, man, that one's close, too. I think that one's probably Pollard. Let's see. McLaurin versus Pollard. Yeah, I think Pollard's got a safer floor here. Yeah, I would go Pollard over McLaurin. Deontay Reed or Garrett Wilson. It's Garrett. It's got to be Garrett Wilson. I get being scared of the matchup. I really like Deontay a lot this week too, but I'm not going to bench Garrett Wilson. I'm not going to be so scared to the point where I'm just benching Garrett Wilson for a lot of these guys. Jayden Reed definitely has a high ceiling too. I don't hate Jayden Reed this week. Actually, yeah, it's close. Actually, Jayden Reed's a little bit ahead of Deontay. I think Jayden Reed versus Deontay is a floor ceiling decision. I honestly might play Deontay over Reed, but yeah, Garrett Wilson needs to be started. He needs to be started. Even in a tough matchup, needs to be started for sure. Samster, good morning. 2 trade questions. Do I trade Devontae Adams for Pickens, or do Adams and Addison for Warren, Shakir, Pickens? Kind of gross trades here, Adrian. I think the first one's better than the second one. I don't think now's the time to trade Addison with how good Darnold's looked and Addison being out. Good morning, Big Sam. Good morning, Zachary Davis. Pick 2, full PPR. Yoshabas, Lockett, Brian Thomas Jr., Kirk at wide receiver, Thanks, and get the Walter Picks app if you want to be a champ. Yeah, guys, make sure you get that Walter Picks app. Link is in the YouTube description, in the TikTok bio. It's the best way you could possibly support me, the entire Walter Picks brand, is checking out the Walter Picks app. Let me show you guys the bottom of the running back rankings here. Shakir or Kirk? Question here from Dan, TikTok live subscriber. Shout out to you, Dan. The Kirk is in this question too. Let's just compare Shakir and Kirk really quick. Then we'll get to this question up on the YouTube live. Going to get to tons more questions, guys. We're going to get to hundreds of start sit questions on this live stream. We've already talked about every single player and every single game, but we're still going here with plenty of time to go. Yeah, these guys are projected really close. Shakir actually beats out Christian Kirk just slightly. Oh, man. My gut instinct was Kirk, but yeah, Shakir's been better. Shakir's the better matchup. It's Shakir. It's Shakir over Kirk. All right, now let's get to this question, though, in the YouTube blog, because I think that the answer here is going to be Kirk. You guys start two of these guys. So you're starting Kirk, and then I think it's probably Lockett or Brian Thomas over Yoshavas with T. Higgins back. But let's see. Yoshavas, Brian Thomas, and Lockett. Yeah, it's Brian Thomas. I think just start Brian Thomas and Kirk. It's also like a pretty safe floor play to do that. Jerome Ford or Drake London. Definitely Drake London. Connor or Taylor. I actually think it might be James Conner there. Yeah, I would play Connor over Taylor. Weird to answer that, but the matchups definitely make sense there. Really tough matchup here for James Conner or for Jonathan Taylor this week. Rome Odunze, Jawan Jennings, or Christian Kirk at flex. I think Jawan Jennings has been the most asked player in the comments this morning with the start sit questions. Bowers or Kincaid? You're not benching Brock Bowers. Do not bench Brock Bowers. Najee Harris is a good start this week. Let me go back to the high-level takeaways here on the TikTok live, because that will answer, I think, a lot of these questions I'm seeing there. But yeah, this one's Christian Kirk, I think, pretty easily. Jawan Jennings is not a good start this week. He just isn't a good start this week. And it's weird. He's coming off one of the best receiver games of all time. And absolutely, guys, absolutely, there's a world where Jawan Jennings has another good game. This game's against the Patriots. They're 11-point favorites. Debo is coming into this game questionable with an injury. Kittle is coming into this game questionable with an injury. When the 49ers are up 14 points in the first half, Jawan Jennings is going to stay out there the whole game, whereas Debo and Kittle are going to get some rest. And there could still be a good game for Jennings, in this one, for sure. It's possible. But it's not a thing you can really project with Kittle and Debo back. Meanwhile, Christian Kirk has a good matchup in a potential shootout. I think just pretty clearly Kirk's the better option here in week 4. And then Odunze is just a little scary with Keenan on the mend. Good matchup for Odunze. I think one of Odunze or Keenan Allen will end up surprising. But I just think just good luck guessing which one it's going to be. So yeah, this one's Christian Kirk, I think, pretty easily. Pickens or Najee? I'm going Najee over Pickens. Really good spot for Najee. Sam, let's go. Let's go. Matt, let's go. Everyone in this live stream, we got week 4. I can't believe we're a month into the season. This is going to be a great week. We got a lot of great games on our TV screens in just a few hours. All right, we got Mondre or Akers with Mixon out PPR. Yeah, so Mixon's out. We got all the injury news already to us, assuming there's no Evan Ingram situation, knock on wood, this week. All right, we got Mondre versus Akers. Wow, back-to-back here in the rankings. Back-to-back in the rankings. Akers projects just slightly better. Mondre had 2 great games and an awful game. I mean, he was one of the worst starts of the week last week against the Jets. This is the worst possible matchup for Mondre of the season, like significantly worse. The running backs, Kyron Williams did do well last week. Breece Hall did do well week 1. So maybe not the worst matchup. You look at the usage for Mondre, and the game was a little out of hand, so they weren't really playing him deep in the 4th. That was Antonio Gibson, but he only played 46% of the snaps. Antonio Gibson has looked better than Ramondre Stevenson in back-to-back games. And then you look at Cam Akers, who has the backfield all to himself in a potential shootout game. He's going to be able to catch some passes too. He caught a touchdown last week, 65% of the carries, only 43% of the snaps, not that great. He had 3 targets. Gosh, I mean, this is a tough one. I think I lean Akers. I think I agree with Walter. Better matchup. Arguably better role, better game environment. Oh, DK lineup. Yeah, I got you with the DK lineup. I sort of hinted at it a little bit earlier, but I really think CJ Stroud in this Texans passing offense bounces back. By the way, we're 1 for 3 on the DraftKings lineups in terms of cashing. But again, like I'll say with these DraftKings lineups every week, this is a tournament lineup. I honestly don't even care about cashing, not cashing. I'm trying to get first place. In tournaments, you got to optimize for first place. I don't care if I come in last for 15 weeks. If I get 1 week in first place, that's a massive first place prize. That's how the tournaments work. So I'm really taking a swing with these lineups every single week. That's the mentality I go in with these lineups. That's why I'm double stacking Stroud with Collins and Diggs. I think both Collins and Diggs are top 10 wide receivers this week. So if they both come through with those projections. Stroud is also going to be a top 5 quarterback, could be the number 1 overall quarterback this week against a bad Jaguars defense. I also think Christian Kirk continues his bounce back from week 3 into week 4. So I like him in the wide receiver slot. 3, I like Elijah Higgins as the sleeper tight end this week. He's pretty much min priced. I think he has a pretty high ceiling as a converted wide receiver playing that Trey McBride role. Brian Robinson's going to smash against the Cardinals with no Austin Eckler. Chuba Hubbard, I think, has one of the most underrated roles in the NFL right now on the Panthers. Offensive line is like sneakily top 5 in the NFL. Sneakily, this whole offense runs through the running backs. Another week without Jonathan Brooks. Another week I want to be starting Chuba Hubbard. And then Aaron Jones, revenge game. He's probably going to be kind of high owned. I honestly wonder if you were going to tinker with this lineup a little bit, maybe pivot off the flex with Aaron Jones, pivot off the Falcons defense. I just picked the Falcons defense because they were low priced, probably going to be low owned, but they actually don't project very well. But all I really care about in the tournaments is, will a lot of other people be playing this defense? Then if the answer to that is no, then yeah, I'm cool playing that defense basically. So that is the DraftKings lineup. I think, again, things to tweak here, Aaron Jones and the Falcons defense potentially, but really like the Stroud, Nico Diggs double stack in DFS this week a lot. All right, Josh Jacobs or Jackson Smith and Jigba. Higgins or Ertz? Yeah, I'm playing Higgins over Ertz. Debo or Juwan Jennings? You got to play Debo over Juwan Jennings. I don't know how you can start Juwan Jennings, guys, with these guys back. Kittle's on the bench list just because of the fear with the injury and not having the huge role, but I actually retracted that already in this live stream. Kittle ranks as tight end 5. You just can't really bench Kittle realistically in most spots. All right, Josh Jacobs or Jackson Smith and Jigba. Let me go back to the wide receiver rankings here on the YouTube live. Yeah, it's Jacobs. It's Jacobs over JSN. I actually like JSN a lot. Michael Wilson absolutely is startable. I'm playing Michael Wilson over Demario Douglas easily. We're sitting Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, Kittle, they all have a ton of risk. All of them. At least one of those guys will do better than I expect. But also I think at least one of those guys will really disappoint. That's the boom bust nature of all those guys coming off the injuries. Jacobs has been really good. Kind of a tough matchup for him against the Vikings defensive line. Jackson Smith and Jigba has a great matchup. Oh, man, looking at this does kind of make me want to start Jackson Smith and Jigba in PPR over Josh Jacobs. It's a close one. But yeah, Jacobs' role has been really strong. I still think it's Jacobs over JSN. It's not like JSN is a lock. Andy Dalton or Love? Yeah, so let's go to the quarterbacks here for a second. Oops, sorry about that on TikTok Live. Let's go to the quarterbacks here for a second. Switch to the quarterback rankings. The quarterback, I like going through the quarterback tight ends a little bit because just straightforward with the onesie positions, I think, oftentimes straightforward start sit decisions. So let's get a quarterback question up on the YouTube Live too. White is not going to be out. I think if White was out, I would do this, but White is not out. So yeah, I would go Akers over Baker. All right, let's get to, is there any quarterback questions here in the YouTube Live? We got 3 player props to share. Here we go. We got 2 Andy Dalton questions. So the other question was Andy Dalton. Who are you considering Andy Dalton? I think it was Dalton versus Love. Yeah, so I'd play Jordan Love over Andy Dalton. Jordan Love had some risk. Sounds like Malik Willis is going to get some run. This is kind of a scary first game back for Jordan Love against a good Vikings defensive line. But the Vikings secondary isn't anything super scary. No quarterback's gotten over 15 points yet. Andy Dalton in the hashtag revenge game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's coming off a 25-point game against the Raiders. Totally reasonable question, Dalton versus Love. I think I would still go Love over Dalton, but I'm playing Dalton. I'm playing Dalton over Anthony Richardson. We got him one spot behind in the rankings here. I think Dalton over Richardson's fine. Richardson is really not a guy you can start this week against the Steelers with how good the Steelers defense has been. Really tough to be starting Anthony Richardson. Should I start Darnell Mooney or Ridley? Yeah, I think Ridley is a fine start. I'd play Geno over Love like pretty easily too. Yeah, Geno Smith over Jordan Love for me. Dobbs or Judy? I'd go Romeo Dobbs over Judy. Let's go to the wide receiver rankings here. Romeo Dobbs in tier 7 for me this week. Mayfield or Caleb? Yeah, that one's actually pretty close too. Let's see. I think I have Mayfield 2 spots ahead of Caleb Williams, 3 spots ahead of Caleb Williams. Definitely a close one. Scary Terry worth starting over Mike Evans? No, you got to start Mike Evans. It's pre-noon. Let's go. PPR projected up 21. Nice. Would you roll with Andrews versus Buffalo or Gesicki versus Carolina, Taysom versus Atlanta, and the fun pick and stack with Kyler and Higgins? Oh, gosh. I think you got to go Andrews. I think you just have to go Andrews here. Being up 21 doesn't really change. like all of these tight ends have a floor of basically 0 points. I think you have to start Andrews. It's gross. It's a gross one. 0-point game for Andrews last week, 33% snap share. Oh, man. It's not like the Bills have been bad against tight ends either. They've actually been pretty good. McBride only had 8 points. Like, what's the real ceiling for Andrews, man? I don't think it's crazy to ride with Higgins over Andrews. I would play Higgins over Gesicki and Taysom, though. Taysom's coming off an injury, too. I could definitely see him involved, but I don't really love Taysom this week. Yeah, I think you got to go Andrews over Higgins. But yeah, I want to think about it. That's definitely one that I want to think about, but it's got to be Andrews. All right, Herbert or Derek Carr. You can't start Herbert. There's no starting Herbert. Absolutely no starting Herbert. Sam, how are we doing on this lovely Sunday morning? It's a great Sunday. I'm doing great, man. We got a great slate of games ahead of us. It's been a fun season so far. So many injuries to work through. Yeah, rough week because of the injuries. The injuries are crazy. I mean, there were so many injuries to monitor heading into week 4. Luckily, we have all the reports out. But I mean, the list was extremely long. I mean, let me find the list here for us. We had Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, Jordan Love, Justin Herbert, Deebo Samuel, Rashad White, Bucky Irving, Keenan Allen, Deontay Johnson, Gabe Davis, Sam Laporta, Kenneth Walker, all questionable this week, all expected to play this week. I mean, wild stuff. A.J. Brown is out. Joe Mixon is out. Obviously, tons of other guys are already out. Trey McBride out. Tons of the tight ends. Evan Ingram, David Njoku, all out. But yeah, it's rough out there. All right, we got Trey Tucker, Yoshabas, Roshan, Madison, Keon, Bucky. Oh, gosh, yeah. So this one, you can't start Madison. Absolutely not. And I really don't think you can be starting Keon Coleman either. So let's look at Tucker. Oops, let's go to Trey Tucker here. The deep league question, definitely with the injuries. A lot of people in tough spot. Roshan Johnson is probably going to be in consideration here. And let's see, Keon Coleman not in consideration. Bucky Irving maybe. Yeah, it's probably Bucky here. Bucky dealing with his own injury that, oh man, Bucky projects the best. My goodness. Against the Eagles. Honestly, I think I would just go Trey Tucker. I think I would just go Trey Tucker, especially if there's a PPR league. Trey Tucker is the highest ceiling of all these guys. Like the real ceiling for Bucky and Roshan is not that high. I don't think it's that high this week. Both of them, I think, are somewhat floor plays. And I'm a little scared about the matchup for Bucky Irving here. We haven't seen any huge running back performances against the Eagles. Why would it be Roshan? We just saw Jacobs, Brian Robinson, and Kamara all go under 16.5 PPR points. That's got to be the max possible ceiling for Roshan Johnson behind a horrible Bears offensive line. This is another one of those things like everyone wants Deshaun Watson bench because he's been terrible. And yeah, he's been terrible, but also the Browns offensive line might be the worst offensive line in the entire NFL. Kind of similar thing there with DeAndre Swift. Everyone wants DeAndre Swift benched. And sure, he's not played well, but also this offensive line is absolutely abysmal. He's getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage, constantly. That's also not good for Roshan. It's also not good for Jameis Winston if Jameis Winston plays. Yeah, I think Trey Tucker here is fine. I think that it makes sense that Bucky projects the best. Makes sense also that Trey Tucker is by far the highest ceiling with Devontae Adams out and Michael Mayer out. Michael Wilson or Waymo Jamo. Oh, gosh. That one's definitely a tight one. I think Jameson Williams, it's still got to be Jameson Williams over Michael Wilson, but it's definitely close. Burrow or Daniels, you're not benching Jayden Daniels. Absolutely do not bench. Do not bench Jayden Daniels. Let me run through the guys that you just absolutely don't want to bench. You just don't want to bench them this week. You want to find a spot for these guys. You want to find a spot for CJ Stroud. You want to find a spot for Joe Burrow. I like Fields and Geno Smith this week as well. You're definitely starting Jayden Daniels and Kyler Murray also. You want to start Jackson Smith and Jigba if you can this week. Deontay Johnson, Jaden Reed. These are good options this week. Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard, also in a good spot. Najee Harris, David Montgomery, Cam Akers, all startable for sure this week. Brock Bowers, Goddard. And then if you are desperate at tight end, I'd like rolling with Elijah Higgins for the Arizona Cardinals fill-in for Trey McBride. All right, pick 2. Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, George Pickens. Yeah, I'm playing Andrews over Gesicki. I'm playing these first 2 running backs over George Pickens pretty easily. Tony Pollard and Chuba Hubbard over George Pickens. Hey, Sam, happy PR. Jaden Reed or Debo? Yeah, it's Reed over Debo. It's got to be Reed over Debo. If I can bench Debo or if I can bench Kittle, I'm going to do it. I'm playing Pitts over Kmet. Kyle Pitts has been brutal so far this season. I still think he does have a ceiling. It's just the floor is not what I thought the floor was going to be. And even the ceiling is maybe not what I was hoping it was going to be. 2, I'm not fully ready to concede on Kyle Pitts. He does have a good schedule coming up, but he does not seem like they're really designing many plays for him. But still, he's got to be started over Kmet, I think, despite Kmet's last week. Another pre-Newton question for you. You're rolling with Chuba versus Cincinnati, Deontay versus Godwin versus Philly. So you're saying you're not benching Chuba this week. PPR flex. Yeah, I think the answer here is Godwin, actually. I think I would go Godwin over all these guys. Godwin has been, I think he's a top 5 receiver so far this season. Chuba Hubbard and then Deontay. I think I would go Hubbard over Deontay. Yeah, it's Godwin, though, actually, here. He ranks number 4 in fantasy points per game this season. Extremely high floor, pretty good ceiling against this Eagles secondary as well. I think that makes a ton of sense. I'm playing Drake London over Jayden Reed. Juwan or Buffalo receiver, yeah. I think you probably go with Shakir over Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings is not a good start because Debo's back. Kittle's back. Dalton or Carr? Yeah, it's Dalton over Carr. T. Higgins or Garrett Wilson? It's got to be Garrett Wilson over T. Higgins. Start Garrett Wilson still, guys. It's a tough matchup, but you still, I think, kind of need to start him. Rome or Pittman? Yeah, gosh, that's actually close. Let's check with Rome Pittman. Sam, down bad. A-Rich is killing me. Do I stick with him or start Kirk or drop Kirk for Caleb or Trevor Lawrence? Yeah, so I think you don't drop A-Rich, but you should not start him. Yeah, I think it's okay to start Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams over Anthony Richardson. Honestly, I think Caleb Williams is probably who I would roll with. Got Trevor Lawrence too, though. The reason my gut was Caleb Williams over Trevor Lawrence is at least Caleb Williams, like, he's been throwing the ball a lot. He actually did well last week fantasy-wise. The Rams, I don't know if the Rams offense would keep pace, though, in this one, whereas this Jaguars-Texans game, I think, will be a shootout. Best matchup of the season for Trevor Lawrence. We got a few spots here, both for CJ Stroud and Trevor Lawrence in this game. This is by far the best matchup of each of their seasons, just on paper, which I think has them both going into this game a little bit underrated. So, yeah, I think it's Trevor Lawrence and Caleb Williams over Anthony Richardson, but I wouldn't want to drop A-Rich yet. I think this is a week, too, where Anthony Richardson can really change our minds against good Steelers defense. If he performs well, I feel much better about him moving forward. Gesicki or Kittle? Yeah, and that one I think I would go Kittle. Fields or Hurts? Yeah, it's Hurts over Fields. Akers or Debo? Oh gosh, I mean, so many Debo questions. I'm gonna be wrong about at least one of these. Go to the tight end rankings here again. I think someone else was asking for the free player prop. So I got 3 props I like today. Steph Diggs over 60.5 receiving yards. His floor is in the 40s. His floor is really close to this line. There's no Tank Dell today. Super high floor for Diggs. Zamir White under 1.5 receptions. I'm pretty shocked about this line. He ran 3 routes last week. Elijah Higgins over 23.5 receiving yards with no Trey McBride. This is extremely close to the floor for Elijah Higgins, who I think is minimum getting 15 plus yards in this game. Hey, Sam, I need your help. Matthew Greenman, I got you. Monty over Ford and Pollard. Yeah, Monty versus Pollard's close. I think I'd probably lean Monty. Should I trade Tyreek and Ramondre for Achane, Deontay Johnson, and James Conner? Yeah, I like this trade a lot. You're getting the best running back in the trade. Two of the best running backs of the trade. Deontay's also a guy I want to be buying. I would do this trade for sure. I don't like selling Tyreek, to be clear. I do like buying Tyreek right now, but I think especially if you're struggling in your league, it's okay to do this trade, and you're getting a lot of value in return here. And pick 2, Dobbins, Garrett Wilson, Deontay Johnson. Yeah, so this one's the last 2. Play Garrett Wilson, play Deontay Johnson. Definitely bench Dobbins here. Michael, how we doing in the YouTube live? Guys, shout out to everyone in this live stream right now. It is week 4, man. We got a great slate of games ahead of us. Make sure you hit that like button if you're watching live on the YouTube live. Smash the follow button if you're watching live on TikTok. Also, come to the YouTube live because the YouTube live is a better viewing experience. It's a better viewing experience. The link is right in the TikTok bio. And I can share my screen. I can pull up comments on screen on the YouTube live. And also, last but certainly not least, if you haven't yet, download the Walter Picks app. Use code SAM when you sign up. It does help me out a ton. I do appreciate that. All right, pick 2, Evans, JSN, Tyreek Hill. Yeah, so you got to start Mike Evans. And the JSN versus Tyreek Hill, I think it's JSN. I think it's JSN this week. I do like both these guys. Evans is for sure startable over both them. But yeah, with Huntley starting, I think it's fine to go JSN. Good matchup for JSN this week for sure. Kittle or Likely? Yeah, it's Kittle over Likely. I retracted the Kittle as the must bench. I no longer think Kittle's a must bench. He's a tight end. We're going to go position by position now in the TikTok live. I think I've had the tight ends up a little while. Let's go. We'll keep it consistent here. Let me run through the tight end list. So you're starting Dallas Goedert and Brock Bowers over everybody. Then it's Kincaid. Then it's Kelsey. Then it's Kittle. And Chris Godwin over Waymo, JMO, and Pickens easily. Waymo versus Pickens, I think, is close. Really close, actually. Let's do this one really quick before I go position by position here for a second and knock out some of these in rapid fire style. Yeah, it's Pickens over Waymo, JMO. Man, Waymo Jamo took a big hit last week, only one catch for Waymo Jamo in what should have been a good game environment. The Lions were just able to run so effectively last week. The Lions are one of these teams, they want to be a run-first team, kind of similar to the Bills, honestly. The Bills also want to be a run-first team, where in fantasy sometimes we kind of want them to be pass-first. They got Josh Allen, right? The Lions have a bunch of pass-catching weapons. They got Laporta. They got Amon-Ra. They got Waymo Jamo. But they want to be a run-first team, and when they do it effectively, the pass catchers do suffer a little bit. We saw that with Jamo last week. I think we're seeing that with the Bills receivers on a week-to-week basis. This week, I do think the Lions are going to be able to run really effectively because there's so many injuries on the defensive line for the Seahawks, who've actually been pretty good, but the D-line's injured, banged up. 3 guys out, another 2 guys questionable on the D-line for the Seahawks. So that's going to be good for Montgomery, good for Gibbs, bad for Waymo Jamo, and the pass catchers likely in that game. So I'm fine going Pickens over Waymo Jamo. So yeah, for the tight ends, let's talk through the tight ends here really quick here on TikTok and YouTube live. Smash the like and follow button, guys. And if you're watching live on YouTube, hit the subscribe button too. Do appreciate that. We're over 2 hours in. We still got several hours to go. We're going to talk through every single player, every single game. Let's start with the tight ends here. You got to start Dallas Goedert and Brock Bowers. Both these guys are locked into massive target shares with their offensive injuries. A.J. Brown's out. Devontae Smith is out. Devontae Adams is out. Michael Mayer's out. Both these guys are over 20% target shares, like their floor. Kincaid, really the only guys with a real floor in fantasy right now, tight end, Goddard and Bowers. Kincaid and Kelsey I like a lot too. George Kittle, kind of have to start him. In most spots. I'm playing Kittle over everyone other than Kelsey, Kincaid, Bowers, Goddard. Sam Laporta has to be similar spot to Kittle, where he's coming off the injury. Kind of just have to start him. You just kind of have to start him. Who else are you going to start? You're not starting any of these guys below him, I don't think. Kyle Pitts, similar thing. Got to start him. I'm playing Pitts over Andrews. Andrews, if you don't have Kyle Pitts, Sam Laporta, Kittle, Kelsey, Kincaid, Bowers, Goddard, which if you have Andrews, you probably don't. You kind of have to start Mark Andrews, guys. This game should be really high scoring. I do still think Andrews is a better option than Isaiah Likely, who played more than him last week. Dalton Schultz, not a bad spot for him with Tank Dell out. Cole Kmet, you can start him too. And then it's Elijah Higgins. Then just go to your waiver wire, add Elijah Higgins, and start Elijah Higgins. Play Elijah Higgins over Zach Ertz, over Colby Parkinson, over Noah Fant, over Hunter Henry, over Cade Otton, over Isaiah Likely, over Tucker Kraft, over Pat Freiermuth, over all these guys. Elijah Higgins, the fill-in for Trey McBride, I do like this week. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position now. Talk through some of the high-level thoughts here. So first of all, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Steph Diggs, Nico Collins, a bunch of guys on the same teams this week. Jackson Smith-Njigba, DK Metcalf, all of these guys are top 15 receivers. All really should be started in almost every single spot. I don't think I've told a single person to bench Chris Godwin today. I don't know how you could bench Chris Godwin. Which teams do you like today, Samuel? We'll get to that here in a second. I'll leave the wide receiver rankings up here. Let me go to the wide receiver rankings on the YouTube live too. Sorry about that. You don't pick up Jahan Dotson. I mean, you can play him, but he's not like a great play. He's a win sprint receiver. This is part of the reason Dallas Goedert's so good. But Dotson is also somehow on so many of my best ball teams way before the trade ended up happening, because I was in on Jayden Daniels. A lot of Jayden Daniels, Jahan Dotson stacks out there for me. But yeah, Dotson does need to step up as the top receiver for the Eagles today. Cam Akers or Chuba Hubbard, it's definitely Chuba Hubbard. And Garrett Wilson, guys, it's a tough matchup. That's why I got Drake London, Steph Diggs, DK Metcalf, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin all over Garrett Wilson, which is most weeks Garrett Wilson's going to be over all those guys. It's a tough matchup against the Denver Broncos, but you still kind of have to start Garrett Wilson. Guys, he was your first-round pick. You don't just bench your first-round pick because he goes up against Pat Surtain. He's still got a pretty high floor. He's still going to see volume. Still has a pretty good chance at a touchdown. Surtain has been good, but I still think Garrett Wilson needs to be started in pretty much all spots. We did see Godwin still have a good game. I mean, the floor is definitely lower. Like, that's why he's lower in the ranks, but he's not so low that you're not starting him. I'm playing Garrett Wilson over JSN, who I like a lot. I'm playing JSN, by the way, over Jaden Reed. I'm playing JSN over Amari Cooper. Chris Olave, I like this week, other than the hamstring injury he picked up on Friday, which is pretty scary. McLaurin is definitely a decent option. He's in tier 5 for me, right at the end of tier 5 against the Cardinals. Definitely a good spot. He bounced back last week. I do kind of expect that to continue into week 4. Tucker versus Dobbs, that's a good one. Let's see. Let's go to the lower end of these wide receiver rankings here for everyone on the TikTok live. I don't like Christian Watson this week. Still a ceiling there. Let's go Dobbs. I think it's Dobbs over Trey Tucker. Yeah, I'd go Dobbs over Trey Tucker. I think Dobbs is leading this team in routes. Let's see here. Yeah, he's played over 70% of the snaps. So, hasn't done much since week 1 when Jordan Love was playing, but Jordan Love's back this week, guys. I do think Dobbs is startable over Trey Tucker. So high ceiling for Trey Tucker, to be clear, though. Definitely high ceiling. We saw it last week. 22 points. Rashid Shaheed type role. Debo, Jennings, or Shakir. Yeah, I think Debo, then Shakir, then Jennings. That's how I think I would rank those guys. All right, let's go to the running backs. Ridley or Debo? Oh, gosh. That's definitely a tough call. Let's go to the Ridley versus Debo here. I mean, in any normal week, it's just so obviously Debo. And in this week, how much risk are you willing to take on? I mean, both these guys are pretty risky, honestly. I think it's just Debo. Just go Debo over Ridley in that one. Spears or Bucky over Swift? Sorry for the constant questions. Kyler, don't apologize for the questions. Shout out to everybody in here asking questions. I want to get to every single question if I can. And yeah, this one is over. I think I'd play Bucky and Spears over Swift. You can't really start Swift right now. There's just no way you can start Swift. I definitely would play Bucky over him. I think Spears is a little bit closer, but is also not that crazy. Moss or Cooper in full PPR? I'm stressing out right now. Everyone take a deep breath. We got 2 hours till we got multiple games on our TV screens. This is really the true time where fantasy football championships are won or lost. You got to make the right start sit decisions. That's what we're here for. That's what we're grinding multiple hours before the kickoff starts for. All right, Moss or Cooper in full PPR. Yeah, so this is a good start sit decision to have to make. I think you're in a good spot here. Amari Cooper is probably going to win this one. Zach Moss is in a good matchup. Man, this is close. Wow. Zach Moss is the floor play. Amari is the ceiling play. If you've been following me long enough, you know which one I'm going to go with here. I'm going to go with the ceiling with Amari Cooper. Really, really high ceiling. We saw the ceiling last week. I think Moss is, good floor play against a bad Panthers run defense for sure. He's going to get the most touches in that backfield for sure. But yeah, I still would go Amari in PPR over Zach Moss. Half PPR, though, is almost definitely Moss over Cooper. The running backs get a big boost in the half PPR format. Akers versus Najee, got to be Najee for me. JSN versus Montgomery, full PPR. That's a Monday night question. I think it's JSN over David Montgomery, but it's pretty close. Najee or Flowers? Yeah, I think I like Najee more than Flowers. Hunter Henry or Schultz? I think it's Schultz. Yeah, with no Tank Dell, it's Schultz. Yeah, it's got to be Schultz here. If you're just tuning in to TikTok Live, guys, smash the follow button. If you're watching live on YouTube, hit the like button. Let's get over 200 likes, man. We've had over 200 people in here for a while. Let's get over 200 likes. Smash the like button. Take 2 seconds. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button, too, if you haven't yet on the YouTube Live. Hit the follow button. Where's Tony Pollard at? Yeah, so Tony Pollard, he ranks in Tier 5, number 24. I'd play Pollard over Kenneth, over Dobbins. He's really at the end of this running back list. I think he does have an intriguing ceiling in this matchup against the Dolphins. We've seen the Dolphins let up some big running back days. Pollard's clearly dominated the touches. All right, so I'm seeing some people ask for the wide receivers. I think we just were there. Let's get to the wide receivers again here, though. I'll switch it to the running backs. All right. Pollard's got a good ceiling, I think, but kind of a scary floor just on this offense overall with the systemic stuff going on with the Tennessee Titans offense. All right, let's get to some more. Akers or Ford? Yeah, this one's close. I think I have Akers ahead of Ford. Yeah, it's Akers over Ford, just based on volume alone. I play Ford over Bucky Irving. I do not think Bucky Irving's a must-start, by the way. Bucky Irving is a good ad. We've had him as an ad in the Walter Picks app literally for 4 weeks. We had Bucky Irving as an ad before the season even started. He's definitely an ad and a hold. I do not think he's a must-start. I do still think White outsnaps Bucky Irving. I still think White has the more valuable receiving role than Bucky Irving. I think Bucky Irving is just sort of this handcuff running back with standalone value, but he still kind of needs an injury to really smash in fantasy because he's not going to get that full receiving role with Rachaad White in town. All right, Kenneth Walker, Christian Kirk. Yeah, I'd go Kirk over Kenneth. Kenneth is another one of these guys. I just prefer to bench if I can in his first game back for sure. All right, let me get to the bottom of these receivers list. I do think Trey Tucker, good sleeper. Michael Wilson, good sleeper this week. I think both those guys, honestly, over Ajunze makes sense. I also think Xavier Worthy, a pretty interesting sleeper this week as well. All right, should I drop Madison for either Fields or Donald? I have Richardson. Yeah, drop him, add Fields, start Fields. Drop Madison, add Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is a pretty good high floor, high ceiling play today on the other side of that game against the Colts. Hey, Sam, full PPR, Reed, Dobbins, or T for my flex. Yeah, this is Reed. It's got to be Reed over Dobbins. I play T over Dobbins too. All right, let me go game by game here. I saw someone come before, who do I like in these games? So I do think that the Panthers are my underdog pick of the week. I was a little surprised about this spread. They're 5.5-point underdogs. I think the Panthers can just straight up beat the Bengals in this revenge game for Andy Dalton. Would not surprise me at all. Bengals still looking for their first win of the season. Packers Vikings game. I think I lean towards the Packers, but this is going to be a really close one. I don't feel strongly about that one. Colts Steelers. I think that the Steelers will win this one. They're slight favorites in Indianapolis, though I do hope we see an Anthony Richardson bounce back to give us some faith moving forward. The Bears versus the Rams. I do like the Bears in this one. They're slight favorites in this one. I think I agree more or less with that spread. The Saints Falcons. I think the Falcons win this one as well. They're small favorites in this one. Saints just dealing with a lot of offensive line injuries. Olave, Kamara, a little bit banged up heading into this one as well. The Eagles, I think, will take care of business against the Bucs. They're very small favorites in this one. Then the Texans Jaguars. I think it's going to be a big bounce back game for CJ Stroud and the Texans passing attack. The biggest upset, though, of the week that I like is actually the Broncos over the Jets. Should the Jets really be 8-point favorites in this game? It just doesn't make that much sense to me. I know it's in New York. The Jets are coming off a good game against the Patriots, but that's the Patriots, one of the worst offenses in the NFL. I know the Broncos offense hasn't been good. It's going to be tough for them to move the ball against the Jets defense, but I would not be shocked at all if the Broncos beat the Jets. Just wouldn't be that surprising to me personally at all. So yeah, I like that upset. The Cardinals versus the Commanders. I do think Cardinals will take this one, but Commanders absolutely have a chance. Patriots versus the 49ers. Pats will get crushed in that game. Browns versus Raiders. I do like the Browns over the Raiders. The Raiders feel like they're crumbling a little bit. No Adams, no Michael Mayer. They also without Max Crosby and some of the defensive players that they have. The Chiefs versus the Chargers. This is another just cakewalk for the Chiefs. It might be a little closer than people expect. The Chiefs will win against an injured Justin Herbert. Also really banged up Chargers offensive line. Bills and Ravens. I don't know how the Bills are underdogs in any game. I get that it's on the road. I get the Ravens have played okay, but the Bills are the best team in the NFL right now. I definitely think the Bills win this game against the Ravens. Titans versus Dolphins. I like the Titans in this one against Snoop Huntley, but I do think Snoop will play better than Skylar Thompson played, and the Seahawks and Lions. I like the Lions in that one. All right, that's my game-by-game analysis there. Let's go back to the start-sit tool. We'll get back to some of these start-sit questions. We got an hour or so to go in the live. We're just getting started. Tight end ranks. Yeah, I got you. Tight end ranks. I got you with the tight end ranks. Let me pull up the tight end rankings here on the YouTube live too. I know that it's a desolate wasteland out there at tight end. I still think there's some edges to be found at tight end. I think the biggest edge this week, if you're really desperate, it's Elijah Higgins. I'm playing Cole Kmet, Dalton Schultz, Andrews, Pitts over Elijah Higgins, Laporta, Kittle, Kelsey, Kincaid, Bowers, Goddard, obviously over Elijah Higgins. Then it's Higgins, man. I'm playing Higgins over Ertz, over Parkinson, over Fant, over Henry, over Otten, over Likely. I do think there's a real ceiling here for Elijah Higgins. And if we're being honest, basically every tight end in this range has a 0-point floor, like a close to 0-point floor. And for sure, Higgins has a really low floor too. He's a backup tight end. He's a converted wide receiver though. And he was already playing. Part of the reason I'm in on Higgins this week, he was already kind of playing a real role in this offense before the Trey McBride injury. Like this isn't just like this guy going from a 0% snap percentage to suddenly think he's getting over 70%. No, he was already playing a third to a half of the snaps with Trey McBride. He's sort of the Isaiah Likely to Trey McBride, except he's even more just fully pass catcher than Isaiah Likely is. Like Elijah Higgins, guys, does not block. He is a converted wide receiver. He can block, but he really isn't used as a blocker very much. He's a wide receiver. He's going to be basically playing wide receiver today against the Washington Commanders, and you get to play him in your tight end slot. And I think he's going to play over 70% of the snaps. Like, yeah, just sign me up for that. There's a really high ceiling against the Commanders. There's no Trey McBride. Trey McBride has had the best volume of all tight ends this fantasy football season too. So I do really like Higgins as the sleeper tight end this week. I like him more than some of the other sleeper tight ends. Brenton Strange, Jordan Akins, Taysom Hill. Some of these other guys, Noah Fant even, Zach Ertz, some of these other guys that could be reasonable sleeper tight ends. I don't like as much as Elijah Higgins. All right, let's get to Pollard versus Olave. Good morning, Chris. Does not feel like morning, but good morning nonetheless. All right, Pollard, we're in full afternoon form as usual here at 11 a.m. Eastern. All right, Pollard versus Olave. So usually this is a pretty easy one. I think it's Olave. I think today it's a little bit riskier with Chris Olave. He was questionable for this game. It does sound like he's going to play. Let's just refresh the news here, make sure we haven't gotten anything new here. Saints expect Kamara and Olave to play. Kamara picks up a hamstring injury on Friday, 2 days ago. Otherwise, I liked this spot for him. We just saw Rashee Rice cook against the Falcons. I think Olave's in a similar role. Pollard, though, I think it's just a bit safer than Olave. I think Olave's got a slightly higher ceiling, but Pollard's got a decent ceiling too. His role has been really good. I still think I'd go Olave over Pollard, but if you want to play it safe, it's definitely Pollard over Olave if you're trying to play it safe. Let's go back to the wide receiver ranks here. Switch back to the wide receiver rankings. Joey, how we doing? Happy football Sunday. Let's go, man. Got me the dub last week, 3-0. Jennings, Waddle, or Mooney, full PPR. Also defense rankings. Yeah, so I'll pull up the defense rankings right now. I don't have these on the TikTok live. If you're watching on the TikTok live, you want the defense rankings, come to the YouTube live. Link is right in the TikTok bio. How do I have Andrews at 8? Yeah, so I mean, Andrews I still think has a real role on the Ravens, but I mean, obviously rough go last week. Rough floor of 0 points for Mark Andrews, but this game should be high scoring. I think it'll be a different game environment for Andrews this week. I don't think it's crazy to go Elijah Higgins stack with Kyler over Andrews. I don't think it's crazy. They're like 3 or 4 spots apart in my rankings. I do think Andrews is a better straight up play than Higgins, but I'm not. I think if you're going for the stack, that's fine. All right. Let's get to this one. Jennings, Waddle, and Mooney, because I think this one's actually pretty close. I don't feel great about Juwan Jennings, and it's always kind of scary, coming off this type of game for Juwan Jennings to recommend him as a bench. I'm going to look like an absolute idiot if I told you to bench him after a 47-point game and he has another good game, and he absolutely is capable of having another good game. He absolutely is in the start-sit conversation in a lot of decisions like this, but he clearly projects much worse with George Kittle and Deebo Samuel playing. I do not think Juwan Jennings is a must-start this week, coming off one of the best wide receiver performances in my lifetime. Literally, that is what he did last week. And man, Waddle wins this one just by a little bit. I'd argue he's maybe the sketchiest of these three with Snoop playing. Man, this is a tough call between these three guys. Over 6 points every single week. I think Waddle and Tyreek are interesting buys. I've been more bullish on Tyreek than Waddle, but I don't know if that's honestly been very fair to Waddle. I think both are kind of, you either like both or you don't like both. They're both in kind of similar roles, similar impact from the situation here in Miami. But yeah, I think it's Waddle. I think it's Waddle over here. And yeah, I'm fine benching Juwan Jennings with Kittle and Deebo back, especially in the game environment. They're 11-point favorites against the Pats. The Pats' run defense is much worse than the Pats' secondary. It makes a lot of sense, I think, to bench Juwan Jennings. Kelsey or Goddard? Yeah, it's Goddard. Goddard's the number one tight end this week. It's Goddard and it's Brock Bowers, like clearly top tight ends this week. All right, I got the defense rankings up on the YouTube live. Ridley or BTJ? Yeah, I think I'd go Brian Thomas Jr. over Ridley. I'm playing Fields over Baker. Fields has a really high floor and a pretty strong ceiling, I think, in this one against the Colts. Shaheed versus Pickens is an interesting one. Rashid Shaheed's coming off a 0-point game. Yeah, it's Pickens over Shaheed. It's close, though. I think that Rashid Shaheed was an interesting buy coming off the 0-point game. I don't think there'll be many more 0-point games for Shaheed, but his volume has actually been really, really strong. Rank these three here. Jalen Hurts, Kyler, Daniels. Yeah, so it's Kyler, Daniels, and then Hurts. The QB rankings, I think, are pretty straightforward. Let me go to the QB ranks here on both live streams. Let's get up the QB rankings here and here. Pretty straightforward. It's Josh Allen, then it's Kyler, then it's Jayden Daniels, then Lamar, Stroud, Hurts. The only reason Hurts is so low is there's no AJ Brown and there's no Devontae Smith. I mean, they kind of have to lean a little bit more run heavy here. Still some good rushing upside. By the way, pretty noteworthy just in general. Look at these top 6 quarterbacks. What do 5 of them have in common? Extremely good rushing production. Jalen Hurts, Lamar, Jayden Daniels, Kyler, Josh Allen. These are the top rushing quarterbacks in the NFL. You scroll down a little bit and you're going to see Justin Fields here at QB 10. It's been so clear in fantasy over the past 5 years. You want quarterbacks that run the ball. We have more quarterbacks that are running the ball effectively now more than ever. And yeah, you got to like all these rushing QBs this week. This Kyler Murray versus Jayden Daniels game too, straight up. Like, who would I rather have in fantasy rest of the season? I think we're just going to see in this matchup. If Jayden Daniels outperforms Kyler in fantasy today, really compelling to have him just ranked ahead of Kyler rest of season because the Cardinals defense is better than the Commanders defense. Rome Odunze or JSN? Yeah, that one's easy. That's the JSN over Rome Odunze. Flex, Deebo or Shakir? I'm fine going Shakir over Deebo. I think Deebo probably projects a little bit better. Yeah, I would lean Schultz over Higgins, even with the stack. I would lean Schultz over Higgins. With Tank Dell out, I think Schultz isn't a bad tight end play this week. McConkey or Jennings? Oh gosh, man. So many Juwan Jennings questions. So many people that I'm telling to bench Juwan Jennings, and Juwan Jennings just does not project well with Deebo and Kittle back. You got to think Juwan Jennings has a role still. To be clear, Juwan Jennings is still going to have a role. Christian McCaffrey is also still out. That is still a lot of targets to go around. But Juwan Jennings is the wide receiver 3 on the team with a good tight end as an 11-point favorite. I think the floor is really low for Jennings, guys. I'm okay going McConkey here with Herbert starting too. All right, Mooney, Kirk, or Waymo, JMO. Yeah, so you're starting Kirk here for sure. And then it's between Mooney and Waymo, JMO, which I think is probably going to be kind of close. It's probably going to be Jameson Williams. Yeah, it's Jameson Williams by just a smidge. I think that's reasonable. I know Mooney's coming off a good game, but I'm okay going Waymo, JMO over him. Sam, I need your help. About to take off on a plane. Jason, have a safe flight, man. Happy PR. Rashad White or Pittman and Love versus Baker. Yeah, so this might take a little bit more than a few minutes before your flight takes off. Let's take this out, though. Rashad White versus Pittman. Pittman is not a guy you can feel good about starting right now. Rashad White, too, but, oh, gosh, it's Pittman just barely over Rashad White. I think that does make some sense. And then Love versus Baker. I think that one's Baker. Let me see. I think they're actually pretty close, too. Yeah, it's Baker over Love. I'm okay benching Love if I can. Rome Odunze or Christian Kirk. Got to be Christian Kirk. Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, both super sketchy starts. Extremely sketchy starts. One of these guys I think will do better than I expect, and one of them is going to completely flop. But you look at the prop lines for these guys, it makes absolutely no sense. No sense. I mean, Keenan Allen, his prop line's in the 20s. Odunze is in the 30s. Michael Wilson, is projected more yards than both these guys, for example. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Tad. Start 2 at flex. Hubbard, Myers, Ford, or Kittle starting Goddard at tight end. Yeah, so this is a great spot to be in. This is why I have Kittle as him as a must bench. He's a must bench if you have someone like Goddard. Kittle's a must bench if you have someone like Bowers. Kittle's a must bench if you have someone like Travis Kelce. But I did not think he was a must bench just in general as we talk through the tight end stuff more. But yeah, here you got to bench Kittle and start 2 at flex. Yeah, start this first 2, I think. Let's check Myers versus Ford, but I'm playing all 3 of these guys over Kittle like really easily. Chuba Hubbard, Jacoby Myers, and Jerome Ford. I think all need to be started over George Kittle. All right, so let's go Chuba Hubbard. Great spot for him. Jerome Ford, not a horrible spot for him. Jacoby in a good spot. Yeah. You said PPR too, I think, right? Didn't say if it's half PPR, go with the 2 running backs. If it's full PPR, I think it's much closer. Still not that unreasonable to go Jerome Ford, though, here. I think you do bench Jacoby Myers here. You go Chuba Hubbard and Jerome Ford. Bijan or Connor. Yeah, I'm not benching Bijan. I'm never benching Bijan. I said 1 JT, Godwin, or Mason. Yeah, I think that I would play Mason over JT. And I'm playing Godwin over both them in PPR. Wow, here we are. It's week 4. We got Jordan Mason just straight up over Jonathan Taylor, just like we all expected. Start 2, half PPR, Tyreek Zay, THN. So you got to start HN. Half PPR, start HN here. And then it's between these other 3 in a half PPR league. And I don't think it's probably not Tyreek. Let's see, Zay. Yeah, it's probably going to be Zay. Oh, wow, these guys are really close. Let's see if half PPR changes this at all, too. Probably not going to change it much. I think it might have changed it slightly there, actually. Yeah, I think it's T. Higgins. This is a close one. I would play T. Higgins and Zay over Tyreek, though. JSN, Higgins, Deontay. I'm playing Deontay. Let's see. Deontay versus JSN is also a good one. I'm playing them both, though, over Higgins. I think it's Jackson's. Yeah, I play JSN over Deontay. Start Jackson Smith and Jigba, guys. Start JSN. Bowers or Amari? Oh, here we go. I'm not playing 2 tight ends. I mean, you got to start Bowers. Like, unless you have Goddard, you're starting Bowers. What tight end are you starting over Bowers? No tight end. Really. It's just Goddard. And if I have Goddard and Bowers, then yeah, I'm probably just going to play Goddard, and I'm going to bench Bowers. Elijah Higgins or Zach Ertz? Yep, it's Elijah Higgins. Excuse me. Bless you. Thank you. All right. Hey, Sam. Bucky Irving or Brian Thomas Jr.? Yeah, go Brian Thomas Jr. I do not think Bucky Irving's a must start. I definitely don't think he's a must start. He's a good add, a good hold. I don't think he's a must start against this Eagles defensive line. And Rashad White still probably needs an injury for him to be like a smash must start. GM Sam, I'm having trouble. Should I make any switches for Jayden Reed in the lineup? Aaron Jones, Kyron. Yeah, play Reed over Debo. Just play Reed over Debo. Debo has risk this week. He does. Elijah Higgins or Pitts? It's Pitts. I got Debo ranked as my wide receiver 24. I got Jayden Reed. Put the wide receiver rankings here again on the YouTube live for you guys to see. At wide receiver 14. It's Reed over Debo, like I think pretty easily. Debo just does have risk. Gavin, thanks for doing the TikTok Live subscription. We will get to TikTok Live subscriber only mode, comment mode, here in like 20 to 30 minutes. Jayden Reed over Debo, straight up, makes a ton of sense to me. I think similar ceilings. Switch to full PPR because that's what all of my leagues are in, probably what most of your leagues are in. Yeah, Jayden Reed over Debo, I think is pretty straightforward. Carson Steeler, Kenneth Walker. Oh man, this is the first time we're getting a Chiefs running back question. I definitely would go Kenneth here in this one. Carson Steele is the only Chiefs running back that can be started, but Kareem Hunt's going to play this week. So really murky situation here. I think that the ceiling might be what we saw for Carson Steele last week, which was 17 carries. Not a bad ceiling, but it's tough to know with how much Kareem Hunt is going to play. He was not active last week. All right, kicker ranks. Yeah, I got you, at least on the YouTube Live with the kicker ranks. Ford or Kenneth Walker? Yeah, I'm going Ford over Kenneth. I want to bench Kenneth if I can. Jacoby or Tyreek? Oh, gosh, that one's tough. Jacoby versus Tyreek. I would play Shaheed over Bucky pretty easily. In a crazy deep league. Love the deep league questions. Bucky, yeah, it's Bucky over Tyler Johnson for sure. Tucker or Mooney? I think Mooney. QB rankings, please. Yeah, I got you with the QB ranks. Love the content. Thanks, man. My running backs are kind of awful, but would you start Sharp or Chase Brown? Oh, gosh. Oh, man, this is not an easy one with Kenneth back. I think it's probably Sharp. It's a good matchup, obviously, for Chase Brown. The best matchup that he maybe is going to get. It's still Sharp. I'd argue that Chase Brown is a higher ceiling, though, with Kenneth Walker back if you really need a ceiling. Mike Evans, Diggs, or Hill? Yes, benching Steph Diggs. Do not bench Steph Diggs. And I actually like Mike Evans a lot this week, too, but not more than Steph Diggs. Steph Diggs and or Nico Collins, I think both most likely are just going to smash against this Jaguar secondary. No Tank Dell, consolidated target shares here. Wouldn't be surprised to see John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson potentially get some run for the Texans today as well. But Evans actually does project better here than Diggs. I personally think it's Diggs. God, it's pretty close, though, obviously. Half a point difference here, projection. I personally like Diggs more than Evans. Jerome Ford or Calvin Ridley? Yeah, it's Ford over Ridley. I'm playing Najee over Shaheed, Najee over Debo. Najee does have a safe floor this week. Happy Football Sunday, Alvin. How we doing, man? Pick two for flex. Kirk, Shakir, Waymo Jamo, Kenneth Walker, full PPR is the first two. Start Kirk, start Shakir. Start Kirk and start Shakir over Jamo and Kenneth. Kenneth or Akers? It's Akers over Kenneth. If I can bench Kenneth, I'm benching Kenneth if I can. I'd rather just see what that role ends up being. It's a little bit sketchy here in his first week back. Right? I got the running backs. I'll get the wide receivers up next on the TikTok Live. Also, if you're watching live on TikTok, guys, come to the YouTube Live. It's a better viewing experience. Same rankings, but I can share my screen on the YouTube Live. Links right in the TikTok bio. If you're watching live on YouTube, smash the like button. Hit the subscribe button. We are 2.5 hours in. We got another hour to go. Mixon is out, by the way. Hey, Sam, if Mixon is out, no, Alex, Mixon is out. Good morning. The news, Mixon's out. So, yeah, you're starting Akers over Pickens now. You should do that. Akers does have a better floor than George Pickens. Good morning, Sam. I need some help. Pick two to start. Reed, Evans, Garrett Wilson, London, and PPR. It's Evans and it's London. Start Evans, start Drake London. Both good starts this week, especially Mike Evans. Jordan Love is back, and Wilson is going against Surtain. Yeah, I know. Garrett Wilson is going against Surtain. So start Drake London then. I think London's actually the last receiver I'm starting over Garrett Wilson. I think a lot of people, you're just going to have to start Garrett Wilson. He's still a top 12 wide receiver, but London actually projects better than him. And Mike Evans also projects better than him. So, yeah, go both those guys. And Eagles secondary is faded, and London is Kirk's guy. Yeah, I'm going London, and I'm going Evans for sure. Hey, Sam, should I start AR5 or Geno Smith? Geno Smith. Do not start Anthony Richardson. Flex HN or JSN? Oh, that one's close, man. Very, very close. I think it's probably JSN. Actually, I think it's probably HN over JSN. It's a close one. I know people were asking for the wide receiver ranks, so let me go to those. Pull those up on the YouTube Live again, too. Akers, Shakir, Goddard, Kirk, Pickens. Yeah, so if you have Goddard, he's not a flex play. He's your starting tight end. He's the number one tight end this week. So get him out of this question. And you don't want to start two tight ends. Don't start two tight ends. Tight ends already as rough enough as it gets. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Don't start two of them. So Akers, Shakir, Kirk, Pickens. You're starting three of these four. Yeah, you're benching Pickens here. Start Christian Kirk, start Akers, start Shakir all over George Pickens. Good morning, Sam. Tall, Walter Picks OG member. Yeah, shout out to all the Walter Picks subscribers out there. Muth or Ertz, Jessica? It's Ertz over Muth. And the Walter Picks app can help you guys. If you don't have the Walter Picks app yet, it's the best way you could possibly support me, the entire Walter Picks brand, is check out the Walter Picks app. I've spent the last 4 years of my life helping build this app. You can do as many start-sit questions as you want for free. You can also do some of the premium subscriptions. If you do the premium subscription, which is only, it comes out to like $5 a month, way cheaper than it should be. You can sync your league for personalized insights all season, trade analyzer start-sit, but there's also player prop insights. Do appreciate everyone checking out the app for sure. And Tal, thank you for being an OG Walter Picks user. All right, PPR. Do I start Debo, JSN, Waddle, Keenan out? Yeah, so bench Keenan out. Again, Keenan Allen's prop lines, guys, they're in the 20s. Let me pull up to see the exact prop lines here for Keenan, because when I saw them, I was like, oh, yep, no, we can't start Keenan this week. Just absolutely not. You just can't go down this path. We've seen this before with Keenan. Guys, his line this week, I guess it moved up a little bit. 39.5 yards is where Keenan's prop is at. Adunze is at, I think, lower than that. 36.5. I mean, both these guys are just super sketchy starts. Definitely JSN and Waddle and Debo over Keenan for sure. Yeah, so it's JSN here. I'm playing JSN over Debo. I'm playing JSN over Waddle pretty easily too. And I'm playing them all over Jennings as well. Mooney or Worthy. I actually like Worthy this week. I think Worthy has a high ceiling this week. The Chiefs really need Worthy to step up into a bigger role than what he's been in. Couple down weeks for Worthy. I still think the ceiling's pretty clearly there, though. Hey, Sam, I'm an OG. As OG as it gets. Brett, what's going on, man? I'm in starts at hell. Yeah, you're not alone. A lot of starts at hell this week. Garrett Wilson, Ayuk, Zach Moss, Michael Wilson, Jacoby Myers, Darnold, Superflex. Pick 4. So start Darnold. Superflex, start Sam Darnold. 100%. You're starting Sam Darnold in Superflex League. So this is the pick 3. You got to start Garrett Wilson here, too. I get it. Pat Surtain, Broncos secondary. You got to start Garrett Wilson. Here's your first round pick, second round pick. Start Garrett Wilson. He can do well in tough matchups. All right, so it's start 2 between Ayuk, Moss, Michael Wilson, Jacoby. Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. Ayuk is definitely scary. Moss is maybe one of the better options here. Jacoby. Also, it might be Moss and Jacoby. Yeah, go Moss, go Jacoby. Just bench Ayuk. Go Moss, Jacoby, bench Ayuk, and bench Michael Wilson. I get Michael Wilson love here too. I actually think he's a good sleeper this week, but not as great as these other guys. Colton, how we doing, man? Monty, B-Rob, Deontay. Yeah, this is B-Rob. There's no benching Brian Robinson this week. There's just absolutely no benching him. I like all 3 of these guys actually a lot this week. All 3 of them I think are really good options, but Brian Robinson's by far the best option. Brian Robinson's our running back 5 in the Walter Picks app this week. He is as close to a lock as it possibly gets. Projected 18 points. The Cardinals have been a horrible defense against running backs. There's no Austin Eckler this week. I mean, just fire up Brian Robinson, I think, with so much confidence today. Do I start JSN over Garrett Wilson? I wouldn't do that. It's close, though. It's definitely really close. And it's not that crazy to go JSN over Garrett Wilson. Let's pull up the numbers here again for Garrett Wilson. I get it. You don't want to start Garrett Wilson. He's still Garrett Wilson. Jackson Smith and Jig was projected 0.1 points less than him. The Lions, we got the Lions, who are the second worst defense against receivers. That's who JSN's going against, versus the Broncos, who are the best against receivers. It's okay to go JSN over Wilson. I'm fine with this one. I think a slightly lower floor, honestly, for JSN than Garrett Wilson, who just has a pretty safe floor in general, but a higher ceiling, arguably. I'm okay going JSN over Garrett Wilson. I'm fine with that. Hey, Sam, I have Marvin Harrison Jr., Rice, Chase, Neighbors, Amon-Ra. Who should I trade away for a running back? Yikes, man. Honestly, you got, 5 top 6 receivers here? Probably trade away Neighbors. I think Neighbors may be the one to trade away here over all these guys. Sell high on Malik Neighbors here. You can get a top 10 running back probably in return. Walter Picks is one of a kind. Love the app and all the info. Yeah, Gary, thanks. I think you literally you're actively at a disadvantage in your fantasy football leagues if you don't use the Walter Picks app, because there's a free version of the app that gives you all these advanced stats that you can't find anywhere else really on your phone very easily. So yeah, definitely check out the Walter Picks app if you haven't yet. Do appreciate it. Pick 1, BT, Brian Thomas Jr., Shaheed, Braylon Allen. But yeah, it's Brian Thomas Jr., I think, over Shaheed. Let's take a look at this one here. Brian Thomas Jr. versus Shaheed, I think, is actually kind of close. Olave is going to play today. Brian Thomas Jr. versus Shaheed. Yeah, it's Brian Thomas Jr. Makes sense to me as well. Just up to the Walter Picks app. Thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate this, Billy. One of the best ways you could possibly support me is doing one of the subscriptions in the Walter Picks app. Huge. I appreciate that. And you're going to get so much value from it too. Definitely let us know if you have any feedback on how we can make that subscription even more valuable to you. One of the things we did for all the Walter Pick subscribers this year too, we have we invested a lot into our Discord. I'm talking constantly in that Discord. I'm answering so many start sits there too. Also, like after this live stream, that's where I go. I go straight to the Discord. I'm chatting the Discord right up till kickoff. Link to the Discord is in the YouTube description if you're watching live on YouTube. Got a question though. JSN or Monty at flex? Yeah, so it's JSN. I think it's JSN. These are both playing on Monday night. I think Montgomery is the safer play. I think JSN's got a little bit of a higher ceiling though. We saw the ceiling. We've seen the ceiling already. This is not just a speculative ceiling for JSN anymore. We saw the ceiling in week 2. He had 12 catches on 16 targets, a 37% target share. And now he gets a even better matchup than he's had. This is the best pass game environment matchup for the Seahawks this season. I do really like the ceiling for JSN. You got some more time to think about this because this is a Monday night, decision also. I like Montgomery and Gibbs a lot this week too. There's 5 injuries on the defensive line, the front 7 for the Seahawks. 3 of them are already ruled out. 2 of them are questionable. So that's good for Monty and for Gibbs. But in PPR, I'm okay siding with JSN here. I think that's a very reasonable thing to do. And again, I think the ceiling is just really, really high for JSN. Fields or Goff, Sam? PPR. Yeah, let's check this one out. I think it's probably Fields. Let's go to the quarterback ranks here again. Why Montgomery over Pollard? It's the Seahawks stuff I was just explaining. Montgomery's in a really good spot this week with all the Seahawks defensive line injuries. Let's go to the quarterback ranks. Pull the quarterback ranks here again. I do think Fields is a pretty good quarterback option this week. He definitely has a safer floor than Goff against the Seahawks. Yeah, it's Fields. It's Fields over Goff pretty easily, actually. Better question would be Andy Dalton versus Goff. That's a real one. Pollard is in a really good role too, but the matchup versus the Seahawks is suddenly pretty good for the Lions with all the injuries that they're dealing with. Jonathan Taylor versus Marvin Harrison Jr. This is definitely Marvin Harrison Jr. Guys, he's going to explode. We saw what Malik Neighbors did. Malik Neighbors had a 67% target share against the Commanders. I'm not saying we're going to see that. Probably again, maybe in our lifetimes. Again, in my whole lifetime, I don't think I've ever seen a 67% target share. But we have only seen receivers crush the Commanders. It's hard to expect that to change with this matchup today. Marvin Harrison Jr. is locked and loaded for this massive role. Guys, we've seen 4 different receivers go over 20 points against the Commanders defense in 3 weeks. Over 1 receiver per game is going over 20 points against the Commanders. To be fair, they played some pretty good receivers, but they're playing good receivers again today too. Absolutely no benching Marvin Harrison Jr. in fantasy across all decisions. So we got 3 free player props today. I feel really good about all 3 of these. Number 1, Stephon Diggs, over 60.5 receiving yards. This is really close to his floor. This might be his floor today with no Tank Dell. He's coming off his best game of the season, Steph Diggs. He's been very involved in all 3 games. He's got at least 4 catches in all 3. He had 10 catches last week for 94 yards. No Tank Dell in this one. Jaguars secondary has been bad this season. I really think Steph Diggs is pretty underrated heading into week 4. Zamir White, under 1.5 receptions. Guys, Zamir White he ran 3 routes last week. And I don't know how likely it is he only runs 3 routes again, but it's absolutely in the cards that he runs 3 or fewer routes because he's been an inefficient receiver. He's also been an inefficient rusher. How is he even finding himself onto the field? He only played 22% of snaps last week against the Carolina Panthers. He got the ball a lot on those. He played 14 snaps. He had 10 carries, but he only ran 3 routes. He's the 3rd best pass catching running back on the active day roster. That's if Dylan Love isn't active, he should be active. Jordan Love, Keenan Allen, Rashad White, Bucky Irving officially active. Jair Alexander is inactive today. That's big news for Justin Jefferson. Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, they're active. I want to see the Dylan Love news. I guess that game's not till later today, so we're probably not going to get that. Not going to get any Dylan Love news, but some significant actives and inactives for sure there. But yeah, I like the Zamir White under. And then last but certainly not least, I like Elijah Higgins over 23.5 receiving yards. Elijah Higgins, I'll go to the tight end ranks here again on the TikTok live. Pull him up here again on the YouTube live too. I know a lot of you out there struggling with tight ends. You're not alone. Start Elijah Higgins. I'll be riding with Elijah Higgins in at least one of my high stakes leagues today where I have Trey McBride or have David Njoku or have Evan Ingram. I'm probably riding with Higgins today. If I don't have, some of these other top tight ends like Goddard, Bowers, Kincaid, Kelsey, Kittle, Laporta, Pitts. I'm playing Andrews over Elijah Higgins. I'm playing Schultz and Kmet. That's it, though. That's it. Only 10 tight ends I'm playing over Elijah Higgins, the former wide receiver who's in year 2, stepping up in that Trey McBride role, or at least a bunch of that role today. What's a good defense to stream? Yes, let me pull up the defense ranks on the YouTube live. If you're watching live on TikTok, by the way, come to the YouTube live. Links around the TikTok bio. We're going to be turning over to TikTok live subscriber only comment mode here momentarily, as well as always. I will always get to the TikTok live subscriber comments. But the YouTube live, I can also pull up comments on the screen and share my screen. It's just a better viewing experience. I show QB then running back. Yeah, I got you. The QBs then the running backs. Which one? Debo, JSN, Kenneth. Yes, JSN over both those guys for sure. I'll go QB, then we'll go to running backs next. Patient on Mark Andrews. You got to be patient. What's your other option? You can't be impatient. You can't drop Mark Andrews. I do think in a lot of spots you still need to start Mark Andrews. All right, I got the defense rankings up. Chiefs defense, 49ers defense, Jets defense, Steelers defense, Texans defense, Dolphins defense, Browns defense. These are my favorite defenses this week. I do think the Vikings defense is just generally like a little underrated too. Nick, thanks for the gift in the TikTok live. Conklin or likely? It's likely, I think, over Conklin. Yeah, Elijah Higgins is the option over Zach Ertz. I do like him more than Ertz. And yeah, you're playing Kyler Murray for sure. Play Brian Robinson. He's probably the guy that I'm like most convinced you just kind of need to start. That will be in some start take questions. Like start Brian Robinson against the Cardinals guys. Walter Pick subscriber. Thanks, Alden. Appreciate you. Shout out to all the Walter Pick subscribers out there. And if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app yet, you're missing out, man. You are actively at a disadvantage in your league because other people in your league are probably using the Walter Picks app and they're more informed than you because of that. So use the Walter Picks app. The link's in the YouTube description, in the TikTok bio, and the premium subscriptions are well worth it. All right, JMO, Pittman, Waddle, D-Hop, Jennings, 1 PPR. Yeah, this is a tough one, man. And I've told so many people to bench Juwan Jennings on this live stream. I'm pretty scared about it. But it is not a good matchup for the 49ers passing attack. The Pat secondary is definitely better than their run defense. And then also Kittle and Debo back makes a lot of risk there too. Let's go to the running backs. I know you guys want the running backs here on the TikTok live. I'll go to the running back rankings here a second on the YouTube live. Let's do this one first, though. Jameson Williams, definitely still startable, just not a must start right now. Waddle, Hopkins. I think I'd play all these guys over Juwan Jennings. And it's D-Hop. Wow, it's D-Hop. These are but two really all Monday night questions here. Bucky Irving or Brian Thomas Jr. I'd go Brian Thomas Jr. there. I'd go Baker over Jordan Love. Not even because you have Godwin, just straight up. I'll go to the wide receiver list next. Yeah, I got you on the TikTok live. It's Hopkins. Yeah, it's Hopkins. This one's pretty close. I think I agree with these rankings, though. Hopkins, then JMO, then Waddle. Need to drop someone for a tight end with McBride out. Braylon out, yeah. Oh, man. I mean, honestly, just drop Swift. Like, just walk through it. This is what I think about with my bench slots, similar to how I think about with the drafting. What's the ceiling for your guys that you're stashing on your bench? Like, what's the ceiling for DeAndre Swift? There's no ceiling for Swift right now. The offensive line is trash. He's clearly not the best rusher on the team. He hasn't even been that involved in the passing attack. I mean, what's the ceiling for Swift? There's not really a ceiling. I mean, he's got 9 targets in the last 2 games, still doesn't even have a game over 10 points. Whereas like Braylon Allen and Bucky Irving, they're at least an injury away from like a real ceiling, like a league-winning ceiling. So yeah, man, just drop DeAndre Swift. I think Braylon Allen already ranks ahead of Swift this week. Ayuk, Hill, or Adunze? Yes, you can't start Adunze. Adunze's prop line's at 36.5. We were just seeing 35.5 or something. Can't really be started. I play Tyreek Hill, I think, over Adunze pretty easily. And then Ayuk versus Hill is pretty close. I do think this one's probably Tyreek. Yeah, start Tyreek Hill. Start Tyreek Hill. I still think there's a really high ceiling for Tyreek Hill. J.K. Dobbins or Kenneth Walker. Man, that one's pretty close. I got the running backs up on the screen right here. I got Dobbins 2 spots, 1 spot behind Kenneth in a different tier, though. God, it's Kenneth. I think it's Kenneth over Dobbins. Not a good spot for Dobbins this week against the Chiefs. Sam, desperate for a wide receiver. Trade Josh Jacobs and Laporta for Debo and Kittle. I don't love getting Debo and Kittle. I don't think I would do this. I don't think I would do this trade. I don't think I like this. Laporta could easily be better than Kittle rest of the season, too. I don't think I like this. Tyreek or Reed? Yeah, it's Jayden Reed. Lazard or Bucky? Jerry, that's a deep league question there. I think I would go Bucky over Lazard. Bad matchup for the Jets passing attack. Ramondre or Akers? That one's pretty close. I think we got that one earlier too, and I think I said Akers. Really close one there between Ramondre and Akers. Yeah, I got Akers one spot ahead of Mondre. Sutton or JSN? Definitely JSN. Likely or Colby Parkinson? Adam, here we are. The likely or Colby Parkinson? The answer is neither. Just go add Elijah Higgins. Drop Colby Parkinson. Add Elijah Higgins. That's what I would probably do if I was in this spot. But I do think if you had to choose between these guys, it's probably likely. We have actually Parkinson ahead of likely. Are we underrating likely here? Let's see. He had 1 point last week too, despite Andrews doing nothing. Oh man, it's Parkinson, then it's likely, but really, still the real answer is Elijah Higgins. Sam, Jahan Dotson or Braylon Allen at flex? It's got to be Braylon Allen over Jahan Dotson. Full PPR Jennings or McLaurin? Got to be McLaurin over Jennings. We're benching Juwan Jennings. Kittle's back. Debo's back. Like the jig is up, I think, for Juwan Jennings. He's now the number 3 receiver on a team that's an 11-point favorite. Roschon, Chase, Tajee, Swift this week. Yeah, I think I ranked them in this order. Roschon, Chase, Tajee, then Swift. Pollard or Henry? Got to be Henry, I think, over Pollard. Not a horrible matchup here for Derrick Henry this week. All right, on the TikTok Live, guys, we're going to go to subscriber-only comment mode. We are still going to be live on YouTube, answering comments there as well. Sorry, YouTube, I'm about to be sticking my fingers in your face. All right, sub-only live chat. Turn that on the TikTok Live. Let me know in the chat, by the way, on the TikTok, which positions you want to see. Tyreek or Flowers? Let me get to that one quick before I jump to this one. Tyreek versus Flowers is definitely a close one. Yeah, it's Flowers. Like in these spots where you can bench, like you're already getting a better projection for some of these other players, just go with the other players. Guys like Tyreek Hill, Debo, Ayuk. Like if you've got guys that are projecting better, Kittle, Jalen Waddle, Juwan Jennings, like just go with these less risky guys in the same role that they were in last week, which is Zay Flowers. Oh, sorry, I just skipped that comment there. We'll try to pull that one back up here in a second. Fant, Gesicki, or Parkinson, Steele or Rashad White, full PPR. I'm still going Rashad White over Steele, and it's Parkinson over Fant and Gesicki, but I like Elijah Higgins more than all three of those guys. Who do you try to get back for Pittman and K9 and PPR? Pittman on the bench anyways. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys I'd like to go trade for. Right now, Tyreek Hill. Maybe you could go get Tyreek Hill. DJ Moore or Garrett Wilson? Yeah, it's oh, man, that's actually close. Let's take a quick peek at that one. Garrett Wilson, I think, is going to be the answer. Shaheed or Mooney / Tyreek Moss, pick 2. Yeah, it's Tyreek and Moss. I picked those last 2. DJ Moore versus Garrett Wilson. Let's check it out. Garrett Wilson projects a bit better. I want to see actually. So Garrett Wilson's prop line, 7.5 targets, 56.5 receiving yards, whereas DJ Moore actually I think is a little higher than that. 58. Yeah, I mean, they're pretty close. I think Garrett Wilson is a reasonable start over DJ Moore. This one's definitely close though, given the matchups too. Like I'd be totally comfortable starting DJ Moore over Garrett Wilson. I honestly think it's DJ Moore over Garrett Wilson. I feel Debo could just be a decoy. Yeah, definitely possible. I'm fine going Jacoby Myers if you want to play it safe. Pick 3, Taylor, Mason, Deontay, Achane. Yeah, so it's Deontay versus Taylor versus Achane. You can't bench Jordan Mason. Let's go. Taylor versus Deontay versus Achane. I think Taylor over Achane's fine. So it's really Deontay versus Achane. And yeah, you benching Deontay in this one. Start Achane, start JT, start Mason, bench Deontay. Definitely 3 guys I feel pretty good starting. JSN or Zay Flowers is JSN. Happy JSN week. We had it week 2. I think it's going to be another JSN week here in week 4 in a pretty good pass game environment against the Lions. The Lions are a pass funnel defense, and the Seahawks defense is banged up. I think that Seahawks-Lions game is going to be very high scoring. Kenneth or Braylon Allen? Got to be Kenneth over Braylon Allen. I don't think Braylon Allen's like this must-start guy. I'm playing Rashad White over Braylon Allen. Burrow, Geno Smith, also Evans or Achane PPR. Burrow or Geno Smith? I'm going Burrow there. And then Evans or Achane PPR. Yeah, it's Evans. Do not bench Mike Evans against the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm playing Rashad White over Braylon Allen. PPR start Akers, Kirk, Michael Wilson, Jennings, or Leggett. I'm going Christian Kirk over all these guys, over Akers, over Michael Wilson, over Jennings, over Leggett. Start Conklin or Elijah Higgins. It's Higgins. Do you think Surtain covering Wilson will open up Conklin? No. I really don't think that's Conklin's like any reasonable of a high floor start. And then Otten had 10 and Muth had 8 against the Broncos. All right, let's just take a quick look here at Higgins versus Conklin. Tight end 25. Conklin had a good game last week, I think. But look at his previous 2 weeks, guys. Under 3 points. I mean, the floor is so astronomically low for both these guys. Meanwhile, Higgins gets the Commanders. He's basically a wide receiver. I'm playing Higgins over Conklin. And sure, yeah, maybe the tight end does need to get targeted a bit more. Yeah, they've had a couple good games. No tight end still has scored over 10 points against the Broncos, though. This whole game is just going to be so low scoring. I think Higgins is a much better chance at a touchdown than Tyler Conklin. That's ultimately what it comes down to. Hey, Sam, Akers or Pollard? Let's get to this one, and then I'll get to some of those. Akers versus Pollard. Yeah, it's Akers. Oh, gosh, it's Akers over Pollard. I don't feel great about it, but I do think it makes sense just based on the volume alone for Akers. It's a good matchup for Akers, too. Even better matchup for Akers than Pollard. Akers had a tough matchup last week, too. Kind of underratedly tough matchup in his revenge game against the Vikings. Now he gets a much easier matchup. I do think we see Akers have a better game than he had last week, which was almost 10 points. Is it Fields or Hurts this week? Yeah, it's got to be Hurts. Still have to play Hurts over Fields, even with the injuries. K9 or Pollard? It's Pollard over K9. Pick 3, half PPR, McLaurin, Kirk, Ayuk, K9 or Ford? Oh, God, a lot of Kenneth Walker questions here, which is understandable. I think Ford over Kenneth. Yeah, we're playing Ford over Kenneth, so you're playing Ford there. And then let's look at some of the other guys. We got Ayuk, Kirk, McLaurin. I definitely think you should be playing McLaurin. This is half PPR, though, too. Yeah, it's got to be Ford. Ford, McLaurin, and then I guess it's Kenneth can be. Yeah, I think I would go Kirk, Ford, McLaurin over Kenneth Walker over Brandon Ayuk. I kind of want to bench these 49ers pass catchers this week against the Pats in a 11-point spread, where it's just hard to know which of these guys is going to boom and which of these guys is going to bust. Happy Football Sunday. Few years being a member. Happy Football Sunday to all of you. We are about an hour away from football on our TV screens. Let's go, man. PPR League. Start Montgomery or Kenneth Walker. Yes, Monty. Easy Monty. I'm playing Debo over JMO. I'm fine playing Debo in this one. Elijah Higgins or Mark Andrews. PPR. I have him. Yeah, it's got to be Andrews. It's got to be Andrews over Elijah Higgins. Let me go back to the tight end ranks here. You guys hear that? Those are good cracks there. Hey, Sam, K9 or Hubbard at flex? Yeah, it's Hubbard. Truba Hubbard's a great start. A great start this week. I pulled the numbers for Truba Hubbard here. Some of the best usage in the NFL. I mean, he's at 13.6 fantasy points per game. That's strong. He's coming off a 28-point game where he's running back 4 last week. A little bit of a tougher matchup, but he had 5 catches, 55 yards in the TD. He also had 114 yards on the ground, 21 carries. I mean, massive role here for Truba Hubbard. The Panthers offense runs through the running backs. Very good for fantasy. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that in the TikTok live. Thanks for the help every week. Yeah, I got you. Steele or J.K. Dobbins PPR? Yes, Dobbins over Steele. It's got to be Dobbins over Steele. I do not feel great about Steele. And then Kincaid or Bowers is Bowers. Start Brock Bowers. Definitely start Brock Bowers. I like Kincaid. He's tight end 3, but Bowers is tight end 2. Bears interceptions. Jalen Johnson needs a huge comeback. Yeah, could definitely see that. PPR, Keenan or Waddle? Oh, man, it's a gross one. I think it's Waddle. Keenan's prop line is in the 30s. Waddle. Yeah, it's Waddle over Keenan. Keenan's just not a guy I really want to start in this sort of murky situation in his first game back. I'm playing Rachaad White over Braylon Allen. Judy versus Jennings. Who is a better chance at booming? We're talking about like a real boom. It's Jennings, and we did just see Jennings like with a true boom. As boom gets for Jennings last week with 46 points. Judy's going to project better than Jennings though. And Judy's boom percentage is actually it's actually the same boom percentage here. I think Jennings has a little bit higher of a boom ceiling coming off the hot game last week. Bears or Browns defense? Yeah, let's take a look at this one. I do like the Browns defense a lot this week against the Raiders. No Adams, no Michael Mayer for the Raiders. The run offense has been terrible. Gardner Minshew at QB. I think I would go Browns over Bears defense for fantasy. Cam Akers, Terry or Ayuk? Yes, Terry. Then Ayuk. Sorry, Terry, then Akers, then Ayuk, I think. Let's take a look, though. Akers continues to project, better than I feel like my gut instinct says. Let's go Terry, McLaurin, Ayuk. Yeah, Akers projects the best here. It probably is Akers. Again, it's a good matchup for him against the Jags. I do like the matchup here for McLaurin, too. I think arguably the highest ceiling here is McLaurin. Save his floor is Akers. Ayuk really shouldn't be considered. What's up, GOAT? How we doing? Jay Claps, Cam Akers, Dobbins, Rashad, Kenneth Walker. This one's Akers too. Yeah, it's Akers over Rashad, Akers over Walker, Akers over Dobbins, Deontay or Achane. It's Achane over Deontay. I like Deontay a lot. The groin injury does have me like a little bit concerned. I think Deontay's got a good floor. Achane's probably got a similar floor, higher ceiling. Yeah, it's Achane. Pick one. Judy, Kirk, Lockett, Waddle. It's Kirk. Play Kirk. Christian Kirk bounced back last week. Pretty good match for him this week. I do like Christian Kirk. I think he's worth a start. Amari Cooper over Juwan Jennings by like so much. It's got to be Amari over Juwan Jennings. Should I accept this trade? Trade away K9. Receive J-Mo and Terry McLaurin. Yeah, it's fine. I'm fine with that. I think Kenneth Walker's probably the best player in the trade once he comes back. But if you need receivers, I think it's reasonable. Hunter Henry or Mark Andrews. Yeah, it's Andrews over Hunter Henry. Monty Pickens, Deontay. This one's between Monty and Deontay. I actually think this one's probably pretty close. I do like Monty this week against a banged up Seahawks defense. Yeah, it's Monty over Deontay. I'm playing. Yeah, we just got to this one. I'm playing Jason over Debo like pretty easily this week as well. Let's switch up the ranks here. Let's go to the wide receiver ranks. Go to the wide receiver ranks on the YouTube live too. We got 3 free player props for all you today. By the way, if you didn't catch them already, we got Steph Diggs over 60.5 receiving yards, Zamir White under 1.5 receptions, Elijah Higgins over 23.5 receiving yards. I like all 3 of these a lot. I'm surprised specifically about the Zamir White line, considering he only ran 3 routes last week. I don't think I've seen any news about Dylan Lobb, who I think should be active this week, but he probably won't be. Like should be, but won't be. Russell Wilson inactive. Let's see if there's any Dylan Lobb hype here. I think that game is later in the day. Nothing about Dylan Lobb. DJ Moore, Drake London. Yeah, I'm leaning Drake London over DJ Moore. Hill or Olave? Oh gosh. How long do we think until Caleb Williams might be? Caleb Williams is startable this week. And he's honestly, I think, like being a little underrated right now. He threw the ball a ton last week too. They clearly have no rushing attack. Scary Terry or Pickens? Yeah, I'm going Terry. Scary Terry over Pickens. I'm playing Kmet over Gesicki. Hill or Olave? I think is Olave. Olave dealing with a hamstring injury, which is like a little scary. But otherwise, he had a great game last week. He's had good usage all season. And Rashee Rice just cooked this Falcons defense in a similar role kind of that Olave's in. So I think Olave is fine over Tyreek Hill. Zay or Debo? Yeah, I'm going Zay over Debo. Waddle, Judy, Bucky, or Spears, full PPR. That's really Waddle versus Judy. I'm not playing Bucky Irving or either of those guys. I think it's probably Waddle. Oh, man, these guys actually project really close. Judy actually out-projects Waddle here. It's Judy. Judy is actually like one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL right now, for being honest. I know I just heard a lot of groans. Nobody likes Jerry Judy. Everyone hates Jerry Judy. Everyone hates Sean Watson and his Browns passing attack. Meanwhile, Judy has not had under 8.5 points in a game this season. He's not really coming off the field. He's playing over 80% of the snaps. He hasn't had a game under 6 targets, Jerry Judy. Now he gets a good matchup against the Raiders. At least an 18% target share in every game. We obviously haven't seen a ceiling in terms of targets either. He's been able to stay healthy every single game, over 25% of the air yards, basically every single game for Judy. Definitely a good sleeper here against the Raiders that not many people are asking about. You got Bears or Rams winning this one? Yeah, I got the Bears. Sam, need a flex start. Higgins, Deontay, or Kenneth? I think the Bears defense will play pretty well against the Rams offense. I'm going Deontay over Higgins. I'm going Deontay over Kenneth as well. I do like Deontay Johnson a lot. I think he's got a really strong floor this week. Akers or Wilson? Oh, this is probably Garrett Wilson, I assume, Cooper. A lot of Garrett Wilson questions this week. I understand it. I don't think this is that crazy of a question either. No scoring settings here. By the way, part of the reason you got to download the Walter Picks app and use the Walter Picks app, link is in the YouTube description, link is in the TikTok bio, is it accounts for your custom league scoring settings. And this one, just go Cam Akers. They're projected the same thing. Akers is in a good matchup. I'm fine going Akers over Garrett Wilson. Thanks for the follow, Archith. Appreciate you. If you do the TikTok live subscription, I will get your comment, by the way. Waddle, Kirk, Shaheed, full PPR, pick one. It's Kirk. Yep, go Christian Kirk. This one's Jayden Reed over Chris Olave. And then Andrews or Kmet. I got Andrews over Kmet. You like Josh Allen or Kyler more? Yeah, I like Josh Allen more than Kyler. The Bills are underdogs. I don't think they should be underdogs, but they're underdogs in Baltimore tonight. I think that Josh Allen as an underdog just needs to be started always. I mean, he's going to be QB1 again this season. He's QB1 so far this year. Yeah, 24 points per game. He's got 2 games over 30 points. Only quarterback that's done that. He has 7 touchdowns. He's got 9 touchdowns through 3 games. He's having 3 touchdowns a game for Josh Allen. Even on a run-first offense, he gets enough of that rushing that he just needs to be started. Wilson or Ayuk? Yeah, it's Wilson over Ayuk, and then likely or Higgins. I'm personally going Higgins over likely this week. Hey, Sam, love the app. Yeah, again, if you haven't checked out the Walter Picks app, do not know what you are waiting for. Ethan, thanks for the follow. And the TikTok live. Guys, if you're watching live on YouTube too, hit the subscribe button. We're doing 3 lives a week this season. We got live every Tuesday night, recapping everything you need to know about every single game. We're live Thursday night to make sure you get the right Thursday night start hits. We're live every Sunday morning from the time I wake up, basically, until kickoff. All right, start 2, half PPR, Kenneth Akers, Brian Thomas Jr., Carson Steele, Braylon Allen. Yeah, it's these middle 2, I think. Akers, let's just check Brian Thomas versus Kenneth, but I'm definitely starting, especially in half PPR, yeah. Definitely starting Akers here. I think half PPR it's probably is Kenneth. This is going to be PPR. Yeah, it's Kenneth. Start the 2 running backs. Half PPR, I almost always lean the running backs, by the way. Definitely we start Kenneth over Steele and over Braylon Allen. Hey, Sam, Stroud or Purdy? Definitely Stroud. I got Stroud in my DraftKings lineup today. I think Stroud bounces back big time today. Good matchup for Stroud and the whole Texans offense. No tank, so I'm double stacking Stroud with Nico and Diggs. I like Diggs. Diggs one of the free player props of the day, over 60 yards. I think he's going to have a good game with Tank out. I like Stroud a lot. I think Stroud is going to bounce back. He's a top 6 quarterback today. I'm definitely starting him over Purdy, like pretty easily. Let me pull up the QB ranks here again on the TikTok live. Pull up the QB ranks again here on the YouTube live as well. I had the QB ranks up. Let's pull up the running back rankings here. Pick 2, JSN, Ayuk, Waymo, Jamo, Chuba, Moss. Yeah, this is JSN and Chuba Hubbard. Start JSN, start Chuba Hubbard very easily. Strange, Gesicki, or Andrews. It's got to be Andrews, man. You're not playing Brenton Strange over Andrews. You're not playing Mike Gesicki over Andrews. I get they've done better in certain weeks. I get Andrews coming off a donut. This is a game environment I think you're going to want Andrews in. He's our number 8 tight end. There's just not like the only the real tight ends you can start over Andrews. Like I'm not starting Elijah Higgins over Andrews, even though I think he's a good sleeper this week. The only tight ends I'm starting over Andrews are Goddard, Bowers, Kincaid, Kelsey, Kittle, Laporta, Pitts. End of list. I'm playing Andrews over Schultz. I know maybe there's an argument there. I'm playing Komet. I'm playing Andrews over Komet. Maybe there's an argument there, but after that, I mean, it's just got to be Andrews, I think, despite the donut, despite the rough start to the season. Brian Robinson Jr. over Chuba Hubbard. Do not bench Brian Robinson Jr. against the Arizona Cardinals. This is a fantastic, fantastic matchup for the whole Commanders offense, definitely including Brian Robinson Jr. without Snapper this week. Morning, Sam. Watch the morning show. Had to leave. Just got back from church. Oh, wow. Long show. 3-0. Thanks to Walter Picks. Full PPR. Need 3. Chase, Rice, Godwin, Deontay. Right now I have Deontay bench. Yeah, that's right. Definitely bench Deontay. And I'd like Deontay this week, to be clear. But all 3 of these other guys are top 10 receivers. You got 3 top 10 receivers here. You got number 4, number 6, and number 7. 3 top 7 receivers. And Deontay's a good option. He ranks down at wide receiver 18. Massive role for Deontay last week was wide receiver 6. I think we could see something similar this week for sure. Good matchup again for Deontay. Actually, the best matchup he's had this season for Deontay. But yeah, still, like these other receivers are just too good to bench. Olave or Scary Terry, half PPR. Yes, this has a little bit to do with risk tolerance with Olave's hamstring. But I think in general, I'm going Olave over Terry McLaurin. Thanks for the follow, TT, on the TikTok live. Nice banner here, Noam. Jennings, Waddle, or Steele? Yeah, so Jennings versus Waddle. I'm not starting Steele here, I don't think. I guess we can include him, though, because it's probably relatively close with these 2 other guys. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Steele does project better. No, it's Waddle. I really don't think Juwan Jennings is like a good start. I'm going Waddle over Jennings. Nix or Herbert. You can't start Justin Herbert. unless you have Bo Nix. These are 2 the bottom 3 quarterbacks, John, are Herbert, Nix, Brissett. The Chiefs have a good defense. Herbert's injured, and the offensive line is injured. I actually don't think it's smart for the Chargers to be playing Justin Herbert today. I think it's Nix, honestly, over Herbert, with the rushing at least. Akers or Cooper, Kraft or Higgins. Yeah, Amari Cooper is actually close. Let's see here between Akers and Amari Cooper. I think it's probably Amari, and if it's a PPR league. And I'm playing Higgins over Kraft. Amari, Cooper, Akers. Man, it's a ceiling floor thing here too. Massive ceiling for Amari Cooper. I personally think I'd go Amari over Akers, but Akers projects a bit better, maybe a little bit of a safer floor. Rashad White or Tyler Lockett? This one's pretty close, probably too. Not very many Lockett questions I saw today. Lockett also has a good matchup on Monday night. I like JSN and Metcalf a lot this week, but for similar reasons, you do have to think about Lockett at least this week. It's Lockett, yeah, Lockett in this one over Rashad White. Rashad White's not a good start. I have told some people to start him, over guys like Braylon Allen, for example, because the receiving role is still there. But he's not a great start. Hey, Sam, what's the player prop? I got 3 for you today, Aiden. I feel really good about all 3 of these. We got Steph Diggs over 60 receiving yards. No Tank Dell today. Jaguar secondary has been really, really bad. I do think the Texans passing attack gets it going for the first time of the season. This is by far their best matchup of the season, which I think is all of these guys. Nico, Stroud, Diggs, all a little underrated heading into this game. This is close to Steph Diggs' floor with Tank Dell out. He had over 90 yards last week. Zamir White under 1.5 receptions. He ran 3 total routes last week. He is getting phased out of the offense right now. He's been incredibly inefficient. He is not the best receiving back on his own team. And Dylan Lobb, I think, sneakily might be active this week. Elijah Higgins, over 23.5 receiving yards, stepping in to the Trey McBride role a bit. Former wide receiver, definitely the preferred receiving tight end with McBride out. I like him a lot too. Those are the 3 player props today. Hey, Sam, ETN or Montgomery, full PPR. Yeah, I haven't seen that many ETN questions either, who's kind of teetering like a little bit with this whole offense. I do think it's ETN over Montgomery. I do think it's close and a good question. I do think Monty's honestly a little safer against the Seahawks defense that's kind of banked up, and that's exactly exactly how we have it in the app here. ETN ceiling is a bit higher. Montgomery's floor is a bit safer. If you want to lock in at least 10 points, go Montgomery. You want a chance at 25 plus, you probably go ETN. He still does have a high ceiling for sure. Olave or Scary Terry, half PPR. Man, I think it's probably Olave still. Half PPR, I wonder how much that changes it, though. I'm definitely a little scared about the hamstring thing for Olave. It's still Olave, but it's super close. If you just want to avoid the whole Olave hamstring situation, it's fine to just go McLaurin here. I think that they're really, really close. Hey, Sam, who will you pick from waivers to start? Jennings, Downs, Gabe Davis, McConkey. Pick up McConkey from waivers. McConkey is by far the highest ceiling of all these guys the rest of season 2, which I do think matters. And I do think McConkey's role in this receiving game, too, kind of bodes well with the situation right now for the Chargers. Bad O-line, no mobility for Herbert. He's dealing with an injury. I do prefer him. I'm playing Higgins over Hunter Henry. I'm playing Higgins over Pat Freiermuth. Yep. Let me go to the tight end ranks here again on the TikTok Live. Put the tight end ranks here again on the YouTube Live, too. We got a few more minutes left. We're going rapid fire here in the comments, and I will be in the Discord answering start sits for the next hour before kickoff, too, once we wrap up the live stream. Akers or Deontay? I'm going Deontay over Akers. I'm playing Higgins over Muth. Brian Thomas Jr., ETN, Aaron Jones, or Braylon Allen. Pick 2. Yeah, I'd probably just go ETN and Aaron Jones here. I'd bench Brian Thomas Jr. I'd bench Braylon Allen. I'm playing Akers over Dobbins. I'm playing Deontay over Akers. I'm playing JT over Amari Cooper. Non-PPR, White, Kirk, Coleman, Pittman, Roschon Johnson. Oh, gosh, man. Non-PPR, I think you got to go almost always with the running backs. I think you go Rashad White and Roschon Johnson here. And then Geno or Love. I think I do have Geno over Love this week. I'm fine with that. With Brown and Smith out, should I start Hurts? Yeah, still start Hurts over Sam Darnold. Dobbins or Akers? I'm going Akers over Dobbins, Matt. I don't know how you feel great about Dobbins against the Chiefs. I think it's going to be kind of somewhat similar to what we saw last week. Dobbins' role at least is good. Chiefs matchup is not good. Offensive line banged up. I'm a little scared about this one getting away from the Chargers. Ford or Akers? Let's actually do this one quick. I think the answer here is Akers over Ford. Akers does have a good matchup. Akers is locked into a pretty significant role as well. Yeah, it's Akers. It's Akers over Ford. This is half PPR. Let's switch back to full PPR. James Cook or Aaron Jones. That one's actually pretty close too. I like both these guys this week. We got a revenge game for Aaron Jones. James Cook projects better. James Cook's got one of the safest floors in all of fantasy too, because no matter what happens in this game, the Bills get a lead or the Bills fall behind. He can't get phased out of games because he's such a good receiving back, and he's their most effective rusher too in the backfield. Do I sit Jennings with Debo and Kittle playing? Yeah, I do think you should strongly consider sitting Jennings. Tyreek Wilson, Cooper, choose 2. Yeah, I'm gonna bench Tyreek here and play Ashley. I'm gonna play Wilson and Cooper. And I like Tyreek. I think buying Tyreek makes sense. This is a tough matchup for Garrett Wilson. I still think he's like kind of a must start over Tyreek though, with his situation. Cam Akers, ETN, and HN. Yeah, this one, let's see ETN versus Akers. I think it's ETN. It's ETN and HN over at Cam Akers. How do you think the Dolphins will run their offense? It's definitely going to be more run heavy, Connor. I think Snoop Huntley, he averaged around 8 carries a game in the past. So I think he's going to skew the offense a little bit more run heavy. They got to do a better job getting the ball, though, in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle's hands. They didn't do a good enough job of it last week. They got to do a better job this week. Hey, Sam, good morning. And not morning for me anymore. It is good afternoon for me, Zach. PPR Pittman or Lad. Yeah, I'm Lad. I think it's Lad over Pittman. Let's actually see, though. It's actually pretty close. Pittman is like barely startable right now with the A-Rich situation. Also, the matchup. This is like one of the worst possible matchups. Pittman still projects better. Oh, man, it is still Pittman over Lad. I really don't want to start Pittman, but I think you can start him over Lad. And then I'm playing Chuba Hubbard over Akers like pretty easily. And yeah, we do have a DraftKings lineup. Pull that up. I'm double stacking Stroud, Diggs, Nico today. I really think this pass game bounces back in a big way today. Hey, Sam, the app says Daniels over Lamar, but I just wanted your opinion. Yeah, it's close, man. That is a really close one. And Daniels has been balling. Lamar, let's compare these. I mean, they're really close, obviously. And like if you drafted Jayden Daniels, you're like just clearly, in one of the sharper fantasy managers out there. I was all over Jayden Daniels as the late round QB this season. It sounds like you were too. And now you're in a tough spot where you also drafted Lamar, and Daniels has outperformed even the best of expectations. And now he gets a good matchup. This is the best matchup Jayden Daniels has had, guys, against the Cardinals, a team that should be able to put up points against their defense. And then Lamar, though, it's not like he's been bad, over 25 points in 2 of his 3 games. He's a small favorite against the Bills. I do think this is a tougher matchup though for Lamar than for Jayden. No quarterback has really done well against the Bills. Look at this. Kyler only had 14 points. They didn't play any other like really great quarterbacks. But yeah, I'm going Jayden Daniels over Lamar. I think that's reasonable. It's definitely close, but reasonable. All right, let me make sure there's not been any more recent news. No, nothing telling me that Dylan Lobb's finally going to play. Pick one, Jameson Williams, Ford, Terry Pickens. Yeah, it's Terry here. I would go Terry McLaurin. Kylo, shout out to you, man. Thanks for tuning in to the Sunday morning live. Let's make sure we got to all the TikTok live subscriber comments. Cool Blue, good morning. Do you like Rams or Bears defense? I like the Bears defense for sure more than the Rams defense. What's up, Sam? Happy Sunday. 3-0 right now. Let's go. Need a flex. Zach Moss, Dobbins, Debo. Yeah, just play Zach Moss. Play Zach Moss against the Panthers. High floor, decent ceiling. I'm okay going Moss over Dobbins for sure this week. HN, Gibbs, Jordan Mason. One sits. Yeah, it's going to have to be HN this week. Not very many times in this live stream have I told someone to bench Devon HN, but I'm not benching Jordan Mason against the Pats as an 11-point favorite with the rushing volume he's seeing. And I'm not benching Gibbs just generally, especially against the Seahawks defense. That's all sorts of banged up. Should I start Jordan Love or Sam Darnold? Yeah, so let me hop over to the QB ranks here on the TikTok live. I got Darnold 2 spots ahead of Love. Darnold's been cooking. Love coming off the injury against the Vikings defense is much scarier than the Packers defense. The more we talk about that game, the more I think the Vikings are going to win that game, by the way. Higgins, Olave, Shaheed, or Ayuk pick 2 help. Yeah, it's these first 2. Just play Higgins and Olave. Let's see. I'm actually interested where Ayuk ranks here because these 49ers pass catchers, I feel like, are just so tough with Kittle and Debo playing. And the projection game script in that game, projected game script, with them being 11-point favorites. Yeah, I was right. Olave and Higgins over Ayuk. Will Deontay play? Still questionable. Yeah, Deontay's going to play. He's actually not still questionable. He's active. There's always a chance that he plays a little less or that he aggravates the injury, but he's active. He's going to play as expected. Barkley, HN, Mason, and Brian Robinson Jr. PPR. Yeah, so you only get 2 running backs and a flex. Yes, you're playing Brian Robinson, you're playing Saquon, you're playing Mason, you're benching HN here too. Likely or Gesicki or pick up Higgins. Yeah, pick up Higgins. Drop Gesicki, pick up Higgins. I'm playing Higgins straight up over Gesicki and Likely. Akers, Garrett Wilson, Dobbins, Johnston, Steele. Yeah, this is Akers. Oh, unless it's Garrett Wilson. I think it's let's do this comparison quick. I feel a lot of people to start Garrett Wilson. I mean, it's not surprising to see a lot of him in the start sit questions with the matchup. It's close. I actually think we looked at this one earlier too. This is close enough that I'm fine just going Akers. Colton, we got 3 free player props today. 3 of them. We're 8-4 this season. I think we're hitting at least 2 out of these 3, if not all 3. I like Steph Diggs over 60 receiving yards. I like Zamir White under 1.5 receptions. He ran 3 routes last week. Tank Dell is out. Diggs' floor is in the 50s, I think, today, receiving yards wise, which make this receiving yards wise, which makes this a great prop. And then Higgins over 23.5. He's my sleeper tight end of the week. I do think he's going to have a real receiving role for the Cardinals today against the Commanders. Do you think starting Kenneth Walker coming off an injury is bad? It's something I'd prefer not to do if I could. I'm playing Cam Akers over Jacoby Myers. Choose 3 happy PR flex spots. Keenan, Pittman, Xavier Worthy, Pirine. Oh, gosh. Yeah, bench Pirine here. Bench Pirine. Play the other 3. Bench Pirine. I don't think Pirine can be started, especially with Kareem Hunt playing this week. Olave, Debo, Garrett Wilson, 2 of. Yeah, bench Debo. I'm cool benching Debo this week too. I think there's a lot of risk attached to all the 49ers pass catchers with Debo and Kittle active. Jennings or Akers, got to be Akers over Jennings. Definitely got to be Akers over Jennings. Rough start and got to even it out. Hill, Olave, Hopkins, Judy, Jennings, pick 2. Yeah, it's the first 2 here. Play Hill, play Olave. I'm playing Hill and Olave pretty easily over Hopkins, pretty easily over Judy, and honestly pretty easily over Jennings too. I know Jennings had a huge game last week on your bench, and it's tough to bench that again, but last week's environment was different. Last week there was no Kittle. Last week there was no Debo. Last week was a close game. This game's not projected to be close. They're 11-point favorites. I'm playing Akers over Kirk, I think. Dobbins versus Sutton. Man, Matt, you got some tough ones today. I don't feel good about Sutton at all, especially in this matchup. I think it's got to be Dobbins. At least there's some floor of volume there for Dobbins. Yeah, it's Dobbins over Sutton. I have Deontay Johnson and Kirk on bench. Should I bench Kenneth? Yeah, I'd bench Kenneth and play Deontay easily. Would do that. TJ, thanks for the follow, man, on the TikTok live. All right, wrap it up really quick with the free player props one more time. 3 of the guys I like a lot versus consensus today. Steph Diggs over 16.5 receiving yards. I think this whole Texans passing attack is a little underrated heading into this game in a good matchup. Best matchup of the season for the passing attack against the Jaguars. Zamir White under 1.5 receptions. He ran 3 total routes last week. I kind of think Dylan Lobb might be active this week too. We'll see about that. Elijah Higgins over 23.5 receiving yards. He's the sleeper tight end you need if you don't have one of the real tight ends that you can play. If you don't have, I'll run through the list one more time. Dallas Goedert, Brock Bowers, Dalton Kincaid, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Sam Laporta, Kyle Pitts. I am including Mark Andrews on this list. Dalton Schultz, Cole Kmet. Then you've got to start Elijah Higgins. Roll the dice with an exciting seedling. I think he definitely is going over 23.5 receiving yards. I think this is really close to his floor as well. Former wide receiver who's going to see his season high, career high snap percentage with Trey McBride out. All right, those are the 3 free player props, guys. That is my time. Thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. We'll be live every Tuesday night, every Thursday night, every single Sunday morning. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on the YouTube live, hit the follow button on the TikTok live. And if I didn't get to your start sit, you know where to go. Go to the Walter Picks app. You can do as many start sit comparisons as you want for free. Link to that is in the YouTube description and in the TikTok bio. Happy Sunday to everyone. Good luck, everyone. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Thanks for spending some time with me today, guys. Good luck, everyone. Have a fantastic week 4 and a fantastic Sunday.